Hello, and welcome. Come, find a comfortable place. Let the tension of your day unspool. Let the rigidity of the ground beneath your feet fade from your awareness. We are so accustomed to the solid, the static, and the reliable. We trust that gravity will pull us down. We trust that fire burns, water quenches, air breathes, and earth supports. But I want you to close your eyes and imagine a place where those laws are merely suggestions, whispered, and then forgotten in the roar of a billion storms. Tonight, we are going to drift away from the material plane. We are leaving behind the astral sea and the ordered dominions of the gods. We are traveling to the foundation of existence. We are going to the place before the world was. The churning soup of potentiality that seethes at the bottom of the multiverse. We are traveling to the elemental chaos. Breathe in deeply. Imagine that the air you breathe is not just oxygen, but a mixture of diamond, dust, ozone, and smoke. To understand the elemental chaos is to understand the concept of the before, in the cosmologies of old, and in the enduring truths of the world axis. The universe is divided into the spirit and the body. The astral sea is the realm of the mind, of thought, and of the soul, but the elemental chaos. It is the realm of matter. It is the raw, screaming physicality of creation, without the guiding hand of a creator. It is a plane of unbridled possibility and terrifying beauty. Picture, if you will, a sky that has no horizon. There is no up or down here, only relative positioning based on your own will. In the distance, though distance is a tricky thing here, you see a mountain of iron floating in a void. But as you watch, a river of liquid lightning strikes the peak. The iron does not just melt. It screams, it transforms. The mountain becomes a cloud of rust-red vapor, which then crystallizes into a storm of razor-sharp rubies that hail down upon an ocean of boiling acid. This is the elemental chaos. It is the definition of entropy, but not the entropy of decay. It is the entropy of energy. It is too much life, too much motion, occurring all at once. When scholars from the University of Silvermoon or the scribes of Candlekeep attempt to map this plane, they fail. You cannot map a location that refuses to sit still. In the Great Wheel cosmology, this concept is somewhat separated into the four elemental planes: fire, water, air, earth, with the chaos merely being the borderlands where they meet. All of the plane of limbo, but in the deeper lore, specifically looking at the Dawn War era, these distinctions collapse. The elemental chaos is the truth of them all. It is the pot in which the soup is cooked. Imagine the sound. It is not a noise you hear with your ears, but a vibration you feel in your marrow. It is the grinding of tectonic plates crashing together at the speed of sound. It is the hiss of a glacier sublimating instantly into steam. It is the roar of a tornado composed of fire. This background hum is known as the discordant note. It is the sound of reality fighting itself. As we float here, suspended in this churning abyss, you might wonder how one survives. The elemental chaos is hostile to mortal life, yet it is not evil. This is a crucial distinction we must make early in our journey. The hells are evil. They seek to corrupt and punish. The abyss is evil. It seeks to destroy. The elemental chaos simply is. It does not hate you. It does not want you to burn. It simply is fire, and fire burns. It is water, and water drowns. It acts according to its nature with such intensity that it leaves no room for your nature. Let us look closer at the substance of this place. In the material world, the four elements are distinct. You have a cup of water, you have a stone. Here, the elements are promiscuous. They mingle and merge in ways that defy physics. You might encounter frostfire, a flame that burns cold and encases you in ice as it consumes your flesh. You might find solid clouds, banks of vapor so dense you can walk upon them, yet they shift and flow like water. There is a beauty in this terror. The light here comes from everywhere and nowhere. It glows from the magma rivers that flow through the air like veins of an angry god. It shines from the phosphorescent moss that grows on tumbling boulders of ice. The colors are more vivid than anything on the material plane, because they are the archetypes of color. The red of the fire here is the definition of red. The blue of the water is the deepest, truest blue. It assaults the senses, overloading the mind with the sheer magnitude of existence. Gravity here is subjective. This is one of the most disorienting aspects for a traveler. On the material plane, gravity is a law. Here, it is a habit if you are a being of strong will. You can define down. You can stand on a floating earth mote, an island of rock drifting in the storm, and decide that the rock is down, but if you leap off the edge, you might fall forever. Or you might simply drift until you are caught in a windstream of crushed glass. Most of the elemental chaos is filled with what is known as the soup or the royal. This is the space between the stable pockets. It is a mixture of dust, gas, liquid, and energy. Navigating the royal requires more than a map. It requires intuition and magic. Ships that sail here, the spelljammers, or the chaotic hardened vessels of the Githzerai, do not use sails to catch the wind. They use psychic sails to catch the intent of the crew, pushing the ship against the randomness of the environment. But it is not all chaos. There are islands of stability. These are usually maintained by immense power. The city of Brass, which we will explore later, is one such place. A blister of order imposed by the iron will of the Afriti. The monasteries of the Githzerai are another, held together by the collective psychic focus of their monks. Without this will, the chaos encroaches, it eats at the edges. A wall left unattended in the elemental chaos does not just crumble. It turns into mud, then into water, then evaporates. Order must be actively maintained every second of every day. Think of the elemental chaos as a heavy, wet clay on a potter's wheel that never stops spinning. The temperature fluctuates wildly. In one moment, you are subjected to the heat of a star, enough to blister skin instantly. A mile away, or perhaps a minute later, the temperature drops to absolute zero, shattering steel like glass. Resistance to the elements is not a luxury here. It is a prerequisite for breathing. But where did this place come from? Why does it exist? To answer that, we must look back to the very beginning. Before the gods spun the astral lattice, there were the Primordials. We will speak of them at length, but know this. The elemental chaos is their body. It is their kingdom. When the gods wished to create the world, Toril, Orth, Kryn, Eberron, they reached into this chaos. They dipped their hands into the royal and pulled out handfuls of raw matter. They smoothed it, they cooled it, they set it in predictable orbits and bound it with physical laws. The material plane is essentially a stabilized bubble of the elemental chaos. This implies something profound and slightly unsettling. The chaos is not out there. It is in here, the blood in your veins, the calcium in your bones, the air in your lungs. It is all borrowed from the elemental chaos. The only difference is that it has been leashed, but the leash can break. When a volcano erupts, that is the elemental chaos remembering its true nature. When a hurricane flattens a city, that is the air, rejecting the order imposed upon it. The elemental chaos is the subconscious of the physical universe. It is the dream of matter untethered by consequence. As we prepare to dive deeper into the history and the inhabitants of this realm, I want you to visualize the elemental bleed. This is a phenomenon where the boundaries between the elements dissolve completely. Imagine a thunderstorm. In our world, rain falls and lightning strikes. In the chaos, the rain is the lightning. Liquid electricity pours from the sky, pooling in sizzling lakes that discharge upward into clouds of magnetic iron dust. Imagine a forest, but the trees are not wood. They are pillars of crystal, growing from a soil of diamonds. The leaves are tongues of green fire that do not consume the crystal but warm it from within. The wind that blows through this forest carries the scent of sulfur and roses. This is a realm where the impossible is mundane. It is a realm of infinite resources, yet it is nearly impossible to mine them. Gold is as common here as dirt is on the material plane. You could find an asteroid made entirely of solid gold, the size of a cathedral, drifting through the void. But to claim it, you must survive the guardians, the environment, and the sheer navigational hazard of bringing it home. It is a tantalizing lure for the greedy and a graveyard for the unprepared. The elemental chaos is also the barrier between the world and the abyss. At the very bottom of the chaos, if bottom can be applied to a place with no gravity, lies the festering wound of the abyss. The chaos swirls around it, trying to wash it away, trying to consume it. But the abyss corrupts the chaos in return. This interaction creates the demon princes and the horrific environments of the lower planes, which are corruptions of elemental purity. We are embarking on a long journey through this storm. We will meet the Archons, soldiers forged from the elements themselves. We will walk the streets of the city of brass and smell the burning spices of the Ifrit. We will meditate with the Githzerai in the eye of the storm. We will witness the birth of Sladi and the churning of the spawning stone. But for now, simply float. Let the chaos swirl around you. Feel the heat, the cold, the pressure, and the vacuum. You are safe here, in the theater of the mind. The chaos cannot hurt you. It can only inspire you. The elemental chaos is the raging beauty of fire, air, earth, and water, dancing in a ball that never ends. It is the cradle of creation, and potentially the grave of the universe should the primordials ever break their chains. Stay close to me. The winds are rising, and the ground, what little there is of it, is beginning to tremble. We must move. The Dawn War is calling to us from the echoes of the past, and we must understand how this chaos was tamed, and the price that was paid for the stability we enjoy today. The storm we are witnessing now, this endless churning of matter and energy, was not always a prison. To understand the elemental chaos, we must understand the singular event that defined the structure of the entire multiverse. We must go back to the era known in the oldest texts, in the metallic scrolls of the angels, and the etched obsidian tablets of the demons, as the Dawn War. It is difficult for a mortal mind To comprehend a time before history, we measure time in heartbeats, in sunrises, in the reign of kings. But the Dawn War occurred before the sun was tamed to rise. It happened in the age of formation, when the universe was young, volatile, and soft. In the beginning, there were two absolute truths. Above, there was the astral sea, a realm of silvery void, composed of thought, memory, and the high ideals of the spirit. This was the domain of the first gods, beings of concept and order. Below, there was the elemental chaos, the realm we observe now, composed of raw matter, energy, and unshaped potential. This was the domain of the primordials. These two realms were separate, distinct poles of existence, spirit and body, idea and substance. The primordials were the masters of the chaos. They were not gods. They did not desire worship. They did not care for prayers or temples. They were beings of immense, unimaginable scale, composed of the very elements they commanded. They were the artists of the physical. They delighted in creation, but their creation was manic. They would forge a star simply to watch it burn out. They would sculpt a planet of diamond only to shatter it with a hammer of thunder, laughing at the destruction, because the destruction allowed them to build something new. To a primordial, permanence is an insult. Permanence is stagnation. To build a thing and let it sit unchanged is a failure of imagination. But then, something changed. The gods, looking down from the astral sea, saw the potential in the chaos below. They saw the raw clay, and they decided to make something that would last. The gods reached into the chaos. They worked together, a pantheon united by a single vision of creation. They took the fire, the earth, the air, and the water, and they began to weave. They did not just pile matter together. They bound it with the laws of the astral sea. They imposed gravity. They imposed biology. They imposed the linear flow of time. They created the world. In some myths, this is called the first world. In others, it is simply the prime material. But it was a marvel. It was a place where fire warmed, but did not always consume, where water flowed, but did not always drown. It was a balanced paradise, a middle place suspended between the high ideals of the astral sea and the raw power of the elemental chaos. At first, the primordials were intrigued. They watched the gods playing with their clay. Some primordials even assisted. The great dragon god Io and the All-Father Moradin worked alongside the titans of fire and earth. There was a brief, golden moment of cooperation. The primordials provided the substance. The gods provided the shape. But the nature of the primordial is entropy and change. They looked at this new world, this static, stable ball of life, and they grew bored. They grew agitated. The world was finished. It was sitting there, spinning, unchanging in its fundamental nature. To the primordials, this was a canvas that had been painted and framed. It was dead. They wanted to scrape the canvas clean. They wanted to smash the sculpture and return the clay to the bin so they could make something else. The primordials descended upon the world to reclaim their materials. They did not see this as murder. They did not see the early mortal races, the first crude ancestors of elves, dwarfs, and humans, as living things worth preserving. They saw them as specks of dust trapped in a matrix of static magic. This was the spark of the Dawn War. The gods, having poured their own essence into the world, refused to let it perish. They stood between the world and the chaos. They drew lines in the fabric of reality and said, "No further." The war that followed ripped the cosmos apart. You must understand the scale of this conflict. When we speak of war, we think of armies marching on fields. The Dawn War was not fought with armies, though armies eventually formed. It was fought with catastrophes. A primordial would attack by hurling a moon made of magma into an ocean. The gods would respond by freezing the ocean instantly, trapping the magma in a cage of holy ice. A primordial would exhale a plague of living wind that stripped the flesh from millions of creatures. The gods would counter by singing a song of healing, so powerful it turned the wind into harmless perfume. The casualties were entire species. The geography of the multiverse was rewritten daily. The elemental chaos churned with fury, responding to the rage of its masters. The discordant note we hear now is merely the echo of the screams from that era. One of the most pivotal moments in this war, a story that highlights the sheer desperation of the struggle, is the tragedy of Io. Io was the ninefolder of dragonkind, a deity of immense power who straddled the line between elemental fury and divine majesty. He was one of the few who truly understood both sides. In the height of the war, a primordial known as the King of Terror, whose name is often struck from the records, but whom we know as Eric Huss, confronted Io. Eric Huss was a being of void and razor adamant. He did not just fight Io, he cleaved the dragon god in two. Imagine the death of a god. It is not a quiet passing. It is a supernova. But from this death, a miracle occurred. The two halves of Io did not fade. The arrogance of the primordial was his undoing. He thought he had destroyed the champion of the gods. Instead, the two halves of Io took immediate form. One half, filled with Io's justice, honor, and desire to protect, became Bahamut, the platinum dragon. The other half, filled with Io's rage, ambition, and elemental fury, became Tiamat, the chromatic dragon. Together, the children of Io rose up and destroyed Eric Huss, turning the tide of that specific battle. This event flooded the world with dragons, creatures who possess the soul of the material world and the fire of the chaos. They are living testaments to the war. But the primordials were winning. They were infinite. For every primordial the gods struck down, the chaos simply birthed another. The gods were finite. They were powerful, yes, but they were bound by their own rules. They could die. The primordials were forces of nature. Can you kill a hurricane? Can you murder a landslide? You can disperse them, but they always reform. The gods realized they could not win a war of attrition. They needed to change the rules of the game. They could not kill the primordials, so they had to imprison them. This led to the creation of the primal ban. The gods realized that the world itself, the very thing they were fighting over, had developed a consciousness. The mountains, the forests, the oceans, they had gained a spirit. These were the primal spirits. They were not gods, and they were not primordials. They were the immune system of the material plane. The gods, desperate and exhausted, made a pact with these primal spirits. They acknowledged that the direct presence of such immense beings, both God and primordial, was tearing the world apart. If the war continued, there would be nothing left to save. So, the gods wove a great metaphysical barrier. They used their divine power to reinforce the boundaries of the universe. They pushed the elemental chaos away, separating it from the material plane by a vast cosmological distance. They created the world axis. Think of the multiverse as a great spindle. At the top, the astral sea. In the middle, the material plane. At the bottom, the elemental chaos. The gods retreated to the astral sea, promising to only touch the world through intermediaries, angels, avatars, and prayers. In exchange, they banished the primordials to the chaos. The banishment was cataclysmic. The primordials were dragged, screaming and clawing, back into the soup of creation. They were bound not by chains of iron, but by chains of law. The gods rewrote the definition of reality to state, primordials cannot exist in the material plane. It was a rewriting of the cosmic code. Some primordials were too powerful to be simply banished. They were imprisoned in specific locales. Some were buried deep beneath the earth of the material plane, sleeping in eternal slumber, their tossings and turnings causing earthquakes. Others were sealed in pocket dimensions, but the vast majority were cast back here, to the elemental chaos, and here they remain. This is why the elemental chaos feels so angry. It is not just nature, it is a prison. The storms you see are the tantrums of jailed kings. The shifting landscapes are their attempts to find a flaw in the walls of their cell. The Dawn War defined the relationship between the elements and the mortals. Before the war, the elements were simply raw material. After the war, they became adversaries. Fire became something that wants to escape. Water became something that wants to flood. The animosity you feel when you face a raging blizzard is real. It is the lingering resentment of the cold against the warmth of life. There was, however, a dark subplot to the Dawn War that we must touch upon, for it changed the elemental chaos forever. It concerns the god named Tharisdun. During the height of the conflict, when the gods were losing, Tharisdun sought a weapon that could ensure victory. He looked outside the known universe. He looked into the far realm, a place of madness that exists beyond the astral and the chaos. He found a seed of pure, concentrated evil, a shard of evil. He brought the shard into the deepest part of the elemental chaos, hoping to use it as a power source to destroy the primordials. He was wrong. The shard did not grant him dominion. It corrupted him, and more importantly, it corrupted the chaos. The shard pierced the bottom of the elemental chaos like a heavy stone falling through silk. It tore a hole in reality. The elemental chaos, which was pure unaligned energy, began to rot around this wound. The elements twisted. Fire became hellfire. Water became slime. Air became poisonous vapor. This wound became the abyss. We will discuss the abyss in detail later, for it deserves its own dark chapter. But you must understand that the creation of the abyss happened within the elemental chaos. It is a tumor growing on the side of this plane. It drew some of the most powerful primordials into it. Demogorgon, Orcus, Baphomet. These were once primordials, majestic in their destructive power. The abyss twisted them into demon princes, stripping them of their elemental purity and replacing it with sins of the flesh and spirit. This caused a fracture in the Dawn War. Suddenly, the gods were not just fighting the primordials. They were fighting the rising tide of demons. Some of the uncorrupted primordials even paused their attacks on the gods to fight back the demons. But the primordials hated the corruption of the abyss as much as the gods did. A primordial wants to smash the world to build a new one. A demon wants to destroy the world simply to see it die. there is a difference. The Dawn War ended in a stalemate of sorts, but one that favored the gods. The Primordials were sealed. The gods ascended. The world survived. But the scars remain. When you travel through the elemental chaos, you will occasionally find the remnants of that war. You might drift past a floating island that is actually the severed hand of a primordial frozen in stone. Still, clutching the hilt of a shattered weapon, you might find fields of debris that are the pulverized remains of angels who died holding the line. These are known as the battlefields of the dawn. Magic behaves strangely there. The echoes of divine words and primordial roars still linger. A simple spell cast in a battlefield of the dawn might trigger a catastrophic explosion, as it resonates with the ambient magical fallout of the war. The Githzerai monks often seek out these battlefields. They meditate upon them, trying to understand the nature of the conflict. They believe that by understanding the war between stability gods and entropy primordials, they can master their own internal chaos. The Dawn War also explains the existence of the Genasi, and the Archons, and the Elementals. These are the orphans of the war. The Elementals are the fragments of the Primordials' will, left behind to wander the chaos. The Archons were the soldiers forged by the Primordials to fight the angels. They still march, millennia later, waiting for orders that will never come, fighting phantom battles against enemies who have long since departed. As we float here, looking at the infinite horizon of the chaos, try to visualize the primal ban. It is invisible to the eye, but palpable to the soul. It is a pressure. If you were a primordial, you would feel it as a ceiling, a barrier that burns when you approach the concept of the material plane. For us, the travelers, the Dawn War is history. For the inhabitants of this plane, it is merely the pause. They do not believe the war is over. They believe they are merely regrouping. They believe that one day, the walls will crack, the primal ban will fail, and when it does, the primordials will rise again to finish what they started. They will reclaim the clay, they will wipe the painting clean, and the elemental chaos will spill over, drowning the stars in a second deluge of fire and water. That is a fear for another day. For now, the ban holds. The gods sit on their thrones in the astral sea, and the primordials sulk in their elemental prisons. We must move forward. We have understood the history. Now we must meet the players. We must look into the faces of the architects of ruin. We must understand the beings who are so vast that their dreams manifest as weather patterns. We must speak of the primordials themselves. Prepare yourself. We are going to navigate toward the deeper, more volatile regions of the chaos, where the presence of these titans distorts reality itself. The storm around us intensifies. Can you feel the shift in the pressure? It is no longer just wind and fire. It is a heaviness that presses against the mind. We are entering the conceptual territory of the primordials. In the previous section, we spoke of the Dawn War as an event. Now, we must speak of the combatants. To understand the elemental chaos, you must understand the entities that view this maelstrom, not as a hostile environment, but as a warm bath. These are the architects of ruin, the Dawn Titans, the Primordials. It is a common mistake for travelers to equate a primordial with a god. They share a similar tier of power, a rank of existence that defies mortal comprehension, but their nature is fundamentally different. A god is defined by what they represent: justice, nature, magic, war. A god requires belief. They are sustained by the collective psychic energy of worship. A god is a concept given form. A primordial requires nothing. They do not need your prayers. They do not care for your shrines. A primordial is not a concept. A primordial is a thing. They are the absolute, undeniable reality of matter. They are the mountain that falls on the village, not out of malice, but because of gravity. They are the tsunami that swallows the coast, not to punish the wicked, but because the water was displaced. They are beings of such immense scale that to see one fully is to risk madness. They do not always possess humanoid forms. Why would they? 2 arms and 2 legs are efficient for walking on land. But when you are the land, such limitations are absurd. Let us drift through the archives of the deep lore and look upon the faces of the most notorious among them. A tomb. First, we turn our gaze to the shadows, to the spaces between the flashes of lightning. Here, coiled in the metaphysical darkness that permeates the chaos, lies Dendar, the night serpent. Dendar is a being of such catastrophic magnitude that she is often mistaken for a place. She is a serpent, yes, but her scales are not made of keratin. They are made of solidified midnight. Her eyes are not biological organs. They are pits of yellow-green sickly light that span miles across. When Dendar slithers through the elemental chaos, she does not push the elements aside. She consumes them, leaving a trail of absolute void in her wake. Dendar's role in the cosmology is terrifyingly specific. She is the eater of nightmares. Every time a mortal on the material plane wakes up screaming, sweating from a dream of falling or being hunted, Dendar grows stronger. She feeds on the psychic detritus of fear. It is said that she has an iron maw, a gullet that can swallow concepts as easily as matter. There is a prophecy, older than the scribed history of humans, that states Dendar acts as a seal. By eating the nightmares, she prevents them from becoming real. She keeps the collective unconscious of the multiverse from poisoning reality. But the prophecy has a dark ending. It says that one day, Dendar will gorge herself until she is full. On that day, she will not return to her den. She will slither out of the elemental chaos, breach the walls of reality, and swallow the sun of the material plane, plunging the world into an eternal era of ice and terror. In the realms, her presence is felt behind the iron door, but her essence originates here, in the raw potential of the chaos. She is an architect of ruin who builds nothing, only waiting for the moment to tear down the light. Now, listen closely. Do you hear that sound? It is not the roar of the wind. It is a wet, scratching sound, like bones scraping against metal, like teeth gnawing on a corpse. This heralds the presence of Kezef, the Chaos Hound. Kezef is a nightmare of a different sort. While Dendar is vast and serpentine, Kezef is concentrated, rabid fury. He appears as a massive mastiff, but his flesh is not skin. It is a roiling mass of maggots and liquid decay. His blood is a corrosive acid that eats through the fabric of dimensions. When he breathes, he exhales a pestilence that rots the lungs of anyone foolish enough to be near. Shall introduce Sarah one and to one can say Kezef is unique among the Primordials because he is the ultimate hunter. During the Dawn War, he did not command armies, he hunted gods. He is the reason why deities are not truly immortal. His teeth are coated in a metaphysical poison that prevents healing. If Kezef bites a god, the wound never closes, it festers for eternity. There is a legend that the gods, unable to kill Kesef, tricked him. They challenged him to a contest of strength, daring him to break a chain forged by the god of smiths, Gond or Moradin, depending on who tells the tale. Kesef, arrogant and mindless in his rage, allowed the chain to be placed around his neck. The chain, magically anchored to the bedrock of reality, held him, but Kesef did not submit. He bit off his own paws to escape, regenerating them instantly, only to be bound again by a leash of starlight. Neshao, Ow. He roams the elemental chaos, a bounding horror of rotting meat and endless hunger, forever sniffing for the scent of the divine. He is the embodiment of entropy that seeks to consume the ordered soul. As we move further into the heart of the chaos, we encounter a story of tragedy and war. We encounter Miska the wolf spider. Miska is perhaps the most famous of the Primordials due to his role in the great conflict known as the War of Lore and Chaos, before the Dawn War fully solidified into the lines we know. There was the Queen of Chaos. She was a primordial of immense power who sought to unite the disparate, chaotic entities into a single army to crush the order of the multiverse. She took a lover. She took a champion. That champion was Miska. Visualizing Miska requires a strong stomach. His upper body is that of a blue-skinned titan, rippling with muscle, 4 arms wielding weapons of jagged star metal. His face is a wolf-like visage, howling, with a voice that cracks the sky. But his lower body is that of a colossal spider, bloated and chitinous, with legs that puncture the fabric of space as he skitters. Miska was the general of the Chaos armies. He was unstoppable. The Wind Dukes of Akka, ancient beings of pure lore who served the concept of order before the gods fully took over, opposed him. They knew they could not defeat him in single combat. They forged an artifact, the Rod of 7 Parts. This rod was the metaphysical antithesis of Miska. It was pure lore, crystallized into a weapon. In the final battle, on the volcanic plains of Pesh, the Wind Dukes drove the rod into Miska. The reaction was cataclysmic. The chaotic blood of the wolf spider clashed with the absolute order of the rod. The universe screamed. The rod shattered into 7 pieces, scattering across the multiverse. But it worked. Miska was not killed, for primordials are notoriously hard to kill. He was blown out of the material plane. He was cast into a prison of winds, often associated with the plane of pandemonium, but his essence remains tied to the elemental chaos. He is the king in exile, the sleeping general waiting for his queen to find the 7 parts of the rod and free him. If Miska were to return, the elemental chaos would rally behind him, and the war would begin anew. These beings, Denda, Kesef, Miska, represent the celebrity of the primordials. But there are others, lesser known but equally terrifying, who drift through the endless storm. Consider Megara, the Inferno. Unlike the wandering hunters, Megara is a sleeper. It is a primordial of pure fire and pressure, often found slumbering deep beneath the crust of worlds, or floating in the dormant magma oceans of the chaos. Megara is not a schemer. It is a battery. Its power is so immense that the dwarves of Gauntlgrim on Toril once tapped into its dreams to power their legendary forges. Imagine the arrogance of mortals. Nandu, using a sleeping god-killer as a kiln to smelt iron, Nitui, Obsenatao, When Megara wakes, it does not speak. It erupts. It turns solid rock into vapor. It reminds the world that the ground is only solid because the fire allows it to be. Then there is Pirinoth, the world mover. Pirinoth is an earth primordial, a being composed of grinding tectonic plates and glaciers. He does not have a face, only a shifting landscape of cliffs and ravines that occasionally resembles a frown. Pirinoth believes that motion is life. He detests the static. He travels through the chaos, grabbing floating earth motes and smashing them together to see what new shapes they form. He is the architect of earthquakes. To catch Pirinoth's attention is to be crushed between two continents. We must also speak of the relationship between these beings. Do they have a society, a hierarchy? Not in the way we understand it. There is no king of the Primordials, though the Queen of Chaos once claimed that title. It is a craterocracy, ruled by strength. If Imix, the Prince of Fire, whom we will meet soon, crosses the path of Megara, Imix moves aside. If a lesser primordial encroaches on Dendar's feeding ground, it is eaten. However, they are united by a common hatred. They hate the gods. They hate the stability of the astral sea. They view the angels and the deities as static rot, a disease that freezes the beautiful changing potential of the universe. When they speak, using a language known as primordial, a tongue of hard consonants and hissing syllables that sound like avalanches and forest fires, they speak of the great unshackling. This is their endgame. They do not want to rule the material plane. They want to dissolve it. They want to take every brick in every city, every drop of water in every ocean, and throw it back into the mixer. It is important to note the fate of those primordials who fell to the corruption we spoke of earlier: Demogorgon, Orcus, and Baphomet. They were once primordials. Demogorgon was a creature of primal duality, a two-headed serpent ape of pure elemental fury. But when the shard of evil created the abyss, Demogorgon was the first to be twisted. The tragedy of the demon princes is that they forgot their nature. A primordial creates and destroys in a cycle. A demon only destroys. The primordials remaining in the chaos look upon the demon princes with disgust. To a true primordial, a demon is a broken tool, a creature that has lost the artistry of chaos and replaced it with the vulgarity of sin. This is why the elemental chaos and the abyss are often at war, despite both being chaotic. It is a war between the pure storm and the corrupting void. As you visualize these titans, understand that they are the sources of the magic used by many mortals. Warlocks who forge a pact with a genie or a great old one are often tapping into the energies of these beings. A hexblade might draw power from the shadow stuff of the shadow stuff, Raven Queen, but the raw force often flows from the reserves of the chaos. The primordials are the battery of the universe. They are the nuclear reactor at the core of the ship. They are dangerous, radioactive, and hostile, but without them, the ship stops moving. We are currently passing through a region of the chaos known as the Shattered Expanses. Look around you. These massive, floating debris fields, some the size of moons, are the bodies of primordials who died in the Dawn War. They are too large to rot. They simply drift, fossilized. See that asteroid, the one made of black ice, shaped like a claw? That is the fingertip of a primordial named Solkara, the crushing wave. She was defeated by Cord, the storm god. Now, mining colonies of Genasi cling to the frozen surface of her severed digit, mining the divine ice for magical reagents. It is a grim existence, living on the corpse of a god monster, but in the elemental chaos you use what you find. The architects of ruin are sleeping or imprisoned, null or distracted, but their dreams leak out. The elemental chaos is the manifestation of those dreams. Every firestorm is a twitch of Imix's eye. Every earthquake is Piranoth turning over in his sleep. We must tread carefully now. As we leave the domain of the Titans, we approach the realms of their lieutenants. The Primordials are the distant, unknowable generals. But the day-to-day management of the elemental forces falls to the princes. These are beings who are slightly more comprehensible to the mortal mind, but no less dangerous. They have built fortresses. They have founded cults. They actively plot against the material world. We are approaching the elemental nodes. I can smell the burning sulfur of Imix and the salty brine of Olidra. Prepare yourself. We are about to meet the princes of elemental evil. We have witnessed the sleeping giants, the primordials, whose dreams shape the weather of the multiverse. Now, we must contract our focus. We must look at the entities that are awake, alert, and actively malicious. We are leaving the realm of nature and entering the realm of intent. In the elemental chaos, most creatures simply exist. A fire elemental burns because it is fire. It bears you no ill will. It simply needs fuel. If you step into it, you burn, just as you would if you stepped into a campfire. But there is a darker breed of elemental power. There are beings who do not just burn. They burn because they hate the cold. They drown because they despise the air. These are the princes of elemental evil. They are technically primordials, or at least of the same lineage, but they have been defined by their tyranny. They are the archimentals, while the great sultans of the genies, whom we will meet in the city of brass, care about wealth, slaves, and territory. The princes of elemental evil care only about the supremacy of their specific element and the annihilation of the others. We are approaching the elemental nodes. These are 4 specific, stabilized pockets within the chaos where the influence of these princes is absolute. Let us begin with the heat. Can you feel it? It is a dry, cracking heat that parches the throat and blisters the lips. Imix. The all-consuming fire. We stand before the volcano of the eternal flame. This is the domain of Imix, the prince of evil fire. Imix is the embodiment of fire's destructive potential. He is not the hearth fire that warms a home. He is the wildfire that races up a canyon. He is the pyroclastic flow. He appears as a colossal pillar of flame, vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifting. His eyes are crackling sparks of white-hot intensity. To serve Imix is to burn. His cultists, often found on the material plane, are arsonists and pyromaniacs. They believe that the world is impure, and that only fire can cleanse it. In the elemental chaos, Imix's realm is a nightmare of magma rivers and ash storms. His personality is as volatile as his element. He is rash, quick to anger, and incapable of patience. He desires to turn the entire multiverse into a star. He hates the water with a metaphysical passion that boils the blood of anyone standing near him when he thinks about it. His greatest rival is Olidra, the princess of water. Their war is eternal. Imix sends legions of fire elementals and salamanders to evaporate Olidra's seas. In return, she sends tidal waves to drown his volcanoes. It is a stalemate of steam. Imix is often worshipped by the fire giants, who have turned away from their traditional gods, and by the red dragons who seek to tap into the rawest form of their breath weapon. But Imix has no loyalty. If his followers burn themselves out achieving his goals, he considers it a beautiful sacrifice. Now, let us shift the scene. The heat vanishes, replaced by a crushing weight. The air becomes thick with dust. Silence falls, heavy as a lead blanket. Ogremoch, the tyrant of Black Earth, we have arrived at Stonemere. This is a vast, flat-topped plateau floating in the chaos, a fortress of granite and obsidian. This is the home of Ogremoch, the prince of evil earth. Ogremoch is the antithesis of Imix. Where Imix is fast and bright, Ogremoch is slow, dark, and enduring. He appears as a walking mountain, a roughly humanoid shape composed of drying mud, jagged rock, and crystal. His eyes are geodes that gleam with greed. Ogremoch is the miser of the multiverse. He believes that all the secrets of the earth, every gem, every vein of gold, every fossil, belong to him. He does not want to destroy the world. He wants to bury it. He wants to crush the sky, so that only the earth remains. His realm, Stonemere, is a place of oppressive gravity. To walk here is to carry a heavy load. The inhabitants are earth elementals, gargoyles, and creatures of stone who plod along in silence. Ogremoch rarely speaks, and when he does, the ground shakes. He is the patron of evil gnomes, Dwergar, and those who delve too greedily into the dark. His enemy is Yansibin, the Prince of Air. Ogremoch hates the air because it is intangible. You cannot crush wind. You cannot bury a breeze. The wind erodes his mountains, wearing them down grain by grain over millennia. This slow erosion drives Ogremoch to a quiet, seething fury. He seeks to petrify the air, to turn the atmosphere into solid stone. Moving on, the weight lifts, but the ground disappears. We are caught in a downdraft. The wind screams, tearing at your clothes, stealing your breath. Yansibin, the shadow of the four winds, we are in the Howling Gyre. This is the domain of Yansibin, the prince of evil air. Yansibin is the most subtle of the princes. He is often invisible, a presence felt only as a shift in air pressure or a sudden chill. When he manifests, he is a swirling vortex of clouds and debris, forming a vague face that dissolves as soon as you look at it. He is the master of secrets. The wind touches everything, enters every room, hears every whisper. Yansibin knows the secrets of kings and gods. He is a manipulator, a liar, the whisperer in the dark. Unlike Imix, who attacks directly, Yansibin attacks from the periphery. He erodes your sanity before he destroys your body. His followers are often illusionists, spies, and assassins who use the air to silence their movements. They ride invisible currents through the elemental chaos, striking and vanishing before the alarm is raised. His hatred for Ogremoch is born of contempt. He views the Prince of Earth as stupid, slow, and stubborn. Yansibin delights in wearing down the earth, turning mountains into sand dunes, proving that the soft touch of wind is stronger than the hard edge of stone. Finally, We feel the dampness. The air becomes heavy with salt. A roar of crashing waves fills the void. We are submerged. Olidra, the princess of the crushing wave. We are at the Coral Citadel, sometimes called the Black Coral Castle. This is the submerged fortress of Olidra, the princess of evil water. Olidra is relentless. She is not the calm lake, she is the tsunami. She appears as a massive wave that never breaks, a constantly churning wall of water with a face formed of foam and debris. She can be as hard as ice or as fluid as steam. She can be as hard as ice or as fluid as steam. Her nature is erosion and overwhelming force. She wants to drown the light. She wants to cover the multiverse in a single, endless ocean where she reigns supreme. She is emotional, prone to tempests of rage that batter the shores of reality. Her followers are the Sahuagin, the evil merfolk, and pirates who sacrifice captives to the deep. They admire her ruthlessness. In her citadel, water weirds and water elementals slide through corridors of blue-black coral, plotting the downfall of the dry lands. In Shalwa, Jadai Hichiagorti. She hates Imix. Fire evaporates her. It insults her. The battle between Imix and Olidra is the most violent of the rivalries because it is so visceral. Fire and water cannot coexist. When they meet, one must be destroyed. The meaning of the nodes, these four princes, Imix, Ogramok, Yansibin, and Olidra, are not allies. They hate each other almost as much as they hate the gods. However, there is a dark force that sometimes unites them. Deep in the lore, hidden in the subtext of the Temple of Elemental Evil, lies the influence of the Elder Elemental Eye. Many scholars believe the Elder Elemental Eye is an aspect of Tharizdun, the chained god who created the abyss by manipulating these four princes. Tharizdun seeks to trick them into breaking his chains. He whispers to them that if they work together, they can destroy the gods. Occasionally, the princes listen. They form a tenuous alliance. They create nodes of combined elemental power, places where fire, earth, air, and water swirl together in a vortex of destruction. These are the most dangerous places in the elemental chaos. In a combined node, you might face a storm where the rain is boiling acid water plus fire. The wind throws razor-sharp rocks, air plus earth, and the ground is a mudslide of magma, earth plus fire. The cults of elemental evil on the material plane try to summon these princes. They build temples underground, channeling the energy of the chaos into the world. If they were to succeed in bringing a prince fully into the material plane, the devastation would be apocalyptic. A single prince could rewrite the climate of a continent. But for now, they remain here. In the chaos, they sit on their thrones of ash, mud, cloud, and coral, glaring at one another across the roiling void. They are the evil of the elements, the proof that even the building blocks of reality can harbor malice. As we leave their domains, notice how the flavor of the chaos changes. The clean, sharp danger of the elements is beginning to smell. Wrong. The air smells of sulfur, yes, but also of rotting meat. The colors are shifting from the vibrant reds and blues of the elements to sickly purples and bruised greens. We are drifting downward. We are approaching the scar. We are approaching the place where the elemental chaos was corrupted beyond repair. We are approaching the abyss. This is not just a change in geography. It is a change in metaphysics. The elemental chaos is wild, but the abyss is wicked. We must prepare our minds, for the next leg of our journey takes us to the edge of madness. The vibration of the universe changes here and now. Can you feel it? Up until now, the elemental chaos has been a place of overwhelming presence. It has been too much fire, too much noise, too much light. It is a realm of addition, but as we drift downward, following the metaphysical gradient of decay, we enter a realm of subtraction. Omnu, al, and to the seek, it I kill. The light does not just fade, it is actively eaten. The roar of the elements is replaced by a whispering murmur that sounds uncomfortably like voices speaking in a language your mind refuses to translate. We have arrived at the bottom of the bucket. We have reached the festering wound in the side of creation. We are staring into the abyss. To understand the abyss, we must understand that it was likely not part of the original design. The gods created the astral sea. The primordials inhabited the elemental chaos. These were the two poles of the battery. The abyss is widely considered by planar scholars to be a cancer that grew when the battery was punctured. The most prevalent account in the archives of the Dawn War begins with Tharizdun, the chained god. In the earliest days of the conflict, Tharizdun was a deity of strength and ambition. He saw the stalemate between the gods and the primordials. He saw that the primordials were infinite, their numbers replenished by the chaos itself, while the gods were finite. He despaired. In his desperation to save the cosmos, he sought a weapon of ultimate power. He looked beyond the edges of the known multiverse. He peered into the far realm, a place of madness, geometry that hurts the eyes, and beings that exist outside of time. There, he found a crystal. The lore calls it the shard of pure evil. It was not large. It was a sliver of concentrated malice, a condensed fragment of a reality that hates our reality. Tharizdun believed he could master it. He believed he could use it as a battery to power a weapon that would wipe the primordials from existence, securing victory for the gods. He brought the shard here, to the deepest, darkest trench of the elemental chaos. He planted it. He expected it to bloom into a weapon. Instead, it bloomed into a hole. The shard of pure evil pierced the fabric of the elemental chaos. It did not stop there. It bored a tunnel through the bottom of reality, spiraling down into infinity. The elemental chaos, reacting to this foreign intrusion, tried to wash it away. The elements rushed in, oceans of water, storms of air, continents of earth, and infernos of fire poured into the hole. But the shard corrupted them. The water turned to blood, bile, and slime. The earth turned to rotting flesh and rusted iron. The air turned to poisonous vapor and screaming psychic winds. The fire turned into the cold, dark radiation of the void. This swirling vortex of corrupted elements became the abyss. It is a pit of infinite layers, each one a twisted reflection of the elemental chaos above it. Where the chaos is wild freedom, the abyss is wild destruction. This creation event changed the war. The primordials, who were closest to the detonation point, were not destroyed. They were unmade and remade. Consider Demogorgon. Endion. Banji, Shi. Before the abyss, ancient texts suggest Demogorgon was a primordial of duality, a creature of reptilian fury and primate cunning, a perfect predator of the chaos, when the shard twisted the reality around him. Demogorgon was the first to fall into the spiral. The corruption split his mind. It turned his duality into insanity. One head, Amul, seeks to control. The other, Hethrodire, seeks to destroy. They hate each other. Yet they are bound to the same body. He became the prince of demons, the first of the Tanarei, the demons born of corrupted elemental energy. Consider Orcus. Scholars debate his origins intensely. Some say he was a mortal wizard, but deep lore from the Dawn War era suggests a darker, primordial beginning. It is believed he was a primordial associated with the stillness of the void, the entropy that ends motion. The Abyss took that concept and twisted it into necromancy. It turned stillness into undeath. Orcus became the demon prince of the undead, obsessed with turning the vibrant living chaos into a silent, frozen graveyard. Jelicidi, Ishvanod, ja, avonkandet cells. Consider Baphomet, Endiu, Al, Endiu. Once a primordial spirit of the hunt, a beast of nature representing the savage triumph of the predator. The Abyss stripped away the nobility of the hunt and left only the cruelty. He became the Horned King, the Prince of Beasts, representing the labyrinthine madness of bloodlust without hunger. These beings, Demogorgon, Orcus, Baphomet, Yenago, are the fallen. They are primordials who looked into the void, and the void swallowed them whole. This created a schism in the elemental chaos that persists to this day. The remaining primordials, those who stayed pure, like Megara and Perinoth, despise the demons. They view the Abyss as a tumor. A primordial wants to rearrange the furniture of the universe. A demon wants to burn the house down and dance in the ashes. This leads to the blood war, though not the one you typically hear about. We know of the blood war between devils and demons, but there is a silent, older war between the elementals and the demons. At the boundaries where the elemental chaos bleeds into the Abyss, a region often called the Plain of 1,000 Portals, or Pazunia, elemental storms rage against demonic influence. Pure water elementals hurl themselves against demons of slime, trying to dilute the corruption. Fire elementals burn away the rot, only to be consumed by shadow. It is a tragic struggle. The elemental chaos is trying to heal itself, like a body fighting an infection, but the infection is infinite. However, we must acknowledge a deeper, perhaps more disturbing layer of history, the Obelisk. While the Dawn War story explains the creation of the Abyss as a place, some esoteric texts claim that when Tharisdun bored that hole, he didn't just make a vacuum. He opened a door to something that was already waiting. The Obelisks are the eldest horrors, Lovecraftian entities that may have slipped in from the far realm or were birthed in the first nanosecond of the corruption. Dagon, the Prince of the Depths, is one such being. He lurks in the shadow sea of the Abyss. He is not a corrupted elemental. He is something else, something older, he whispers to the corrupted primordials, guiding them, manipulating the chaos for ends that are incomprehensible to sanity. The Queen of Chaos, whom we mentioned in the story of Miska, the wolf spider, Shichan, tried to bridge this gap. She was a native Oberith who rallied the corrupted primordials like Miska to fight the law. This historical alliance cements the link between the chaos and the abyss. They are cousins, but cousins who have gone down very different paths. As a traveler, how do you know when you have crossed the line? In the elemental chaos there is light. Even in the darkest earth pockets, there are phosphorescent crystals. But in the abyss, the darkness is substantial. It is a heavy dark. Light spells function poorly here. They seem dim, strangled by the atmosphere. Furthermore, the elemental chaos feels impersonal. The abyss feels watchful. If you stand on an earth moat in the chaos, the rock is just rock. If you stand on a ledge in the abyss, the rock might be the calcified skin of a dead god, and it might hunger for the warmth of your boots. The corruption of the abyss is aggressive. It tries to climb up. This is a terrifying phenomenon known as the abyssal plague. During the chaotic times of the spell plague, the barriers between the abyss and the elemental chaos fractured. The corruption surged upward. It created the Void Harrow, a crystal of concentrated madness, a shard of the shard, if you will. This creates plague-changed creatures. Imagine a fire elemental, pure, clean flame. Now, imagine it infected by the abyss. The fire turns purple and green. It doesn't just burn, it mutates what it touches. If it burns a tree, the tree doesn't turn to ash. It turns into a writhing mass of snakes made of charcoal. This is the horror of the abyssal influence on the elements. The elemental chaos is the source of life's matter. The abyss is the antimatter. Tarisdun, the architect of this nightmare, was punished. The gods, realizing what he had done, and perhaps seeing that he had gone utterly mad, chained him. They created a prison dimension, a pocket of nothingness, and sealed him away. But the damage was done. The shard remains at the bottom of the abyss, a beating heart of evil that pumps corruption into the veins of the universe. There are cults, the cults of the Elder Elemental Eye, who believe that the only way to save the universe is to destroy it and start over. They serve Tarisdun. They operate within the elemental chaos, trying to guide the primordials into the abyss, trying to feed the corruption until it swallows the astral sea itself. It is a somber thought. We float here, on the precipice of the pit. Below us lies infinite horror. Above us lies the raging storm of creation. We must turn back. To linger here is to invite the gaze of things that have no names. We must ascend, back into the clean chaos. We need to find a place of respite, a place where order has been carved out of this madness, not by gods, and not by demons, but by the sheer, unyielding will of mortals. We are going to leave the stench of the abyss behind, and travel to a sanctuary of the mind. We are going to visit the Githzeroel. We are going to see how a people can live in the heart of the storm, and find perfect stillness. Clear your mind. Shake off the feeling of the crawling dark. Focus on a single point of stability. We are heading to Zerthadlon, into ways Adorni. Breathe. Me. Let the stale, metallic taste of the abyss fade from your memory. Push away the thoughts of the crushing deep and the whispering dark. We are ascending. We are returning to the upper strata of the elemental chaos, where the light is bright and the dangers are, at the very least, honest. But do not relax your mind. In fact, you must do the opposite. You must sharpen it. You must focus it into a needlepoint. Look ahead, through the swirling mists of a rainbow-colored nebula, through a storm of crystal shards that chime like a million shattered bells. You see something impossible. You see straight lines. In nature, and especially in the elemental chaos, there are no straight lines. Rivers meander, lightning forks, rocks tumble in jagged arcs. But there, floating in the center of a screaming hurricane, is a structure of perfect geometry. It is a complex of concentric rings and soaring towers, built from a stone that gleams with a pale, yellow-gray light. It does not sway in the wind. It does not crumble under the hail of acid rain. It sits in the storm, completely immobile, like a grand refusal of the reality around it. We have arrived at the sanctuary of the Githzerai. This is the city of Zertadlon. Now, to understand this place and the people who live here, we must understand the power of the mind. We have spoken of the Primordials, who shape reality through raw power. We have spoken of the gods, who shape reality through divine decree. The Githzerai shape reality through will. The history of the Githzerai is a history of trauma and transcendence. Thousands of years ago, long before they came to the elemental chaos, the Gith were a single race. They were humans, or human-like, enslaved by the Illithids, the Mind Flayers. For generations, they were cattle. They were bred for servitude and psychic food. Their minds were flayed, their wills broken. But the Illithids made a mistake. In breeding their slaves to be stronger and more efficient, they inadvertently unlocked the latent psionic potential within them. Within them, a leader rose. Her name was Gith. She was a warrior of unparalleled fury. She rallied her people, teaching them to armor their minds and weaponize their hatred. The rebellion was bloody and total. The Illithid Empire was shattered. The Illithid Empire. But in the ashes of victory, a schism formed. Gith, the warrior queen, wished to continue the crusade. She wanted to hunt the Illithids to the ends of the multiverse, and then take their place as the conquerors of the stars. She believed that without conquest, her people would be vulnerable again. Opposing her was a man named Zerthimon. Zerthimon was not a warrior in the traditional sense. He was a philosopher, a monk, a Zerth. He looked at Gith and saw that she was becoming the very thing they had fought. He argued that replacing one tyrant with another was not freedom. He preached that true freedom was not about controlling others, but about controlling oneself. He gathered his followers and issued the pronouncement of two skies. He declared that the path of Gith led to a closed sky, a suffocating ceiling of war and domination. His path led to an open sky, a realm of limitless potential through self-mastery. Civil war ensued. The people of Gith split. Those who followed the warrior queen became the Githyanki, fleeing to the astral sea to become pirates and raiders. Those who followed the philosopher became the Githzerai. Those who spurned Gith. And where did Zerthimon lead his people? Did he take them to a paradise? Did he find a verdant world of peace? No, he brought them here, to the elemental chaos, to the heart of the storm. Why? Because Zerthimon understood a fundamental truth. Comfort breeds weakness. If the Githzerai were to remain free, they needed to be tested every single second of their existence. They needed a forge. The elemental chaos is that forge. Here, in the roiling soup of matter, Nothing is stable unless you make it stable. A wall only stands if you believe it stands. A floor only holds you if you trust it will. Look closely at the walls of Zerthadlon as we approach. They are not made of brick and mortar. They are made of chaos matter that has been calcified by psionic pressure. The Githzerai have a special caste of masters known as Anarchs. An Anarch is a Githzerai whose mind is so disciplined, so rigid, that they can impose order on the chaos simply by being present. They do not build cities with cranes and hammers. They meditate. They sit in the center of the void and visualize a city. They visualize the streets, the temples, the gardens. They hold that image in their mind with such intensity that the elemental chaos is forced to conform to it. The city of Zerthadlon is a sustained thought. Now, if the Anarchs were to break their concentration, if they were to doubt for even a moment, the walls would turn to water, the floors would turn to smoke, and the city would be consumed by the storm. And a city would be consumed by the storm. Imagine living in a house that only exists because someone is concentrating on it. This is the daily reality of the Githzerai. It breeds a culture of extreme asceticism and absolute focus. You will not find loud taverns here. You will not find loud taverns here. Frivolous art. Everything is functional, sparse, and meaningful. Let us walk the streets of Zerthadlon, India Cal. The architecture is stark. It favors sharp angles and circles, shapes that imply mathematical perfection. The streets are silent, save for the soft rustle of robes and the distant muffled roar of the chaos outside the gravity bubble. You see, the Githzerai people. They are tall, gaunt, with skin the color of yellow parchment or bruised olives. Their faces are severe, their eyes deep and intelligent. They wear simple robes, often bound with wrappings that denote their station or their martial arts discipline. Discipline. They do not walk, they glide. Many of them do not even touch the ground, preferring to levitate a few inches above the stone as a constant exercise of minor telekinesis. Here, in the monastery of the Unbroken Circle, we see the training. Young Githzerai are not allowed to play in the traditional sense. Their play is mental conditioning. A mentor might hand a child a sphere of chaotic liquid, fluid that wants to explode into fire or freeze into ice. The child must hold the sphere in their mind, forcing it to remain liquid water. If their mind wanders, the sphere detonates. Pain is the teacher. They learn the way of the Zerth. This is a philosophy that blends martial arts with psionics. A Githzerai monk does not just punch you with their fist. They punch you with their mind. When they strike, they are projecting a psychic shockwave that disrupts your nervous system. They can step through the dimensions, teleporting across the battlefield by simply refusing to acknowledge the space between points A and B. The center of Githzerai society is the Zereth Menya, Ag Gith. This is their leader, their god-king, though he would reject the title of god. He is the great Githzerai. He is an entity of immense age and power, residing in the fortress city of Shraktlor, which exists in a different pocket of the chaos, or in the plane of limbo, depending on the specific cosmological alignment. But his influence reaches here. The Menyer Ag is said to be the most powerful Anak alive. It is rumored that he sustains not just a city, but the entire cultural identity of the Githzerai. He does not sleep. He does not age. He sits on his throne, a withered husk of a man, radiating an aura of power so dense it feels like gravity, holding the race together against the entropy of the universe. But let us return to the environment. How do they eat? There are no farms in the elemental chaos. The soil is too acidic, the sun too erratic. Look at the gardens of Zerthadlun. They are enclosed in glass domes of force. Inside you see strange, pale plants. These are chaos lilies and void tubers. They are plants that have been mutated and stabilized. The Githzerai gardeners do not water them with cans. They water them with telekinetic hydration, drawing moisture from the air. The light comes from glowing crystals, tuned to the exact frequency the plants need. The food is bland, nutritious and efficient. To a Githzerai, gluttony is a loss of control. You eat to fuel the body, so the body can house the mind. Flavor is a distraction. Despite their isolation, the Githzerai are not pacifists. They are arguably the greatest monster hunters in the multiverse. They have a ritual known as the Arakma. This is the Great Hunt. Remember their history. They were slaves to the Mind Flayers. They have never forgiven, and they have never forgotten. The Rakma is a holy war. Bands of Githzerai warriors, monks, sulk knives, and scions venture out from the elemental chaos into the material plane, or the Underdark. They hunt illithids. They do not hunt for sport. They hunt for extermination. A Rakma party will track a Mind Flayer colony for years, learning its patterns, mapping its tunnels. When they strike, it is with surgical precision. They dismantle the colony, kill the elder brain, and vanish before the local races even know they were there. But there is another enemy, one closer to home, the Sladi. We will speak of the Sladi in the next section, for they are the true children of the chaos. But you must understand the dynamic here. The Githzerai hate the Sladi. The Githzerai represent imposed order. The Sladi represent manifest chaos. The Sladi constantly test the walls of Zerthadlun. They fling themselves against the psychic barriers, howling and scrabbling. To a Slad, the static nature of the city is offensive. It is an itch that must be scratched. The Githzerai view the Sladi as the mindless sludge of the universe, trying to drown the intellect. Defense against the Sladi is constant. The walls of the city are manned by watchers who scan the royal for the telltale shifting colors of a Slad raid. There is a fascinating element of Githzerai lore involving the Zerths. These are the religious leaders, named after Zerthamon. They tell the stories of the Unbroken Circle. The Unbroken Circle is a physical object, a series of gold plates inscribed with the teachings of Zerthamon. But it is also a metaphor. It represents the idea that the Githzerai people are a circle that must not be broken by outside influence. One of the most famous passages from the circle reads, "Strength cannot be used to deny itself." This is a critique of their cousins, the Githyanki. The Githzerai believe that by conquering others, the Githyanki have become slaves to their own conquests. They are bound to their loot, their dragons, and their Lich Queen Vlakith. The Githzerai, by owning nothing and conquering only themselves, are the only ones who are truly strong. This philosophical divide is why the two races hate each other, with a passion that eclipses even their hatred for the Illithids. If a Githzerai and a Githyanki meet in the elemental chaos, They will fight to the death immediately. It is a war of ideology. Travelers who come to Zerthadlan are viewed with suspicion. The Githzerai are not cruel, but they are aloof. If you can prove that you have discipline, if you can sit still, speak truth, and control your emotions, they may grant you shelter. They may even trade. They trade in goods that cannot be found elsewhere. Adamantine mined from the floating earth motes, chaos matter stabilized into weapons that shift form when the wielder commands it, psionic crystals that can store memories or thoughts. But be warned. Do not lie to a Githzerai. They can read the micro-tremors in your aura. They can smell the chemicals of deception in your sweat. To lie is to introduce chaos into the conversation, and they have no patience for chaos, As we stand on the highest spire of Zerthadlan, looking out over the endless churning storm of the elemental chaos, the contrast is breathtaking. Below us, a sea of liquid fire crashes against a cliff of ice. Lightning arcs through clouds of green vapor. It is a scene of absolute bedlam. And here, on the spire, there is silence. The wind does not blow. The air is cool and still. A Githzerai monk sits in the lotus position near the edge, eyes closed, mind expanding to hold the barrier. He is the wall. He is the shield. Ian. This is the lesson of the Githzerai. The world is chaos. The universe is hostile. You cannot change the storm. You can only change yourself. And if you change yourself enough, if you make yourself hard enough, the storm breaks around you. But not everyone fights the storm. Some things are born of it. Some things look at the chaos and see not a threat, but a mother. We must leave the sanctuary of Zerthadlan now. We must cross the barrier and go back out into the royal. We are going to hunt for the natives. We are going to find the spawning stone. We are going to meet the Slati. Prepare your immune system. Prepare your sanity. The Githzerai offered us philosophy. The Slati will offer us only infection. We leave the dry, sterile geometry of the Githzerai behind. Can you feel the humidity rising? The air around Zerthadlan was thin and psychic. The air here is thick, tropical, and smells of wet earth and musk. We are traveling into the biological heart of the elemental chaos. We are moving from the realm of rocks and fire to the realm of flesh and fluid. Listen. Do you hear that sound? It is a chorus of croaks, bellows, and wet slapping noises. It sounds like a swamp the size of a galaxy. We are entering the territory of the Sladi. Ninway Nisir. If the Githzerai are the antibodies of the chaos, trying to cure it with order, the Sladi are the virus. They are the true natives. They are not elementals in the traditional sense. They are not made of fire or water. They are made of the concept of chaos given biological form. They are change made flesh. To understand them, we must go to their source. We must navigate through currents of soup-like matter, dodging bubbles of acid and floating globs of magma, to find the anchor of their race. There, in the distance, do you see it? It is a massive floating boulder miles across. But it is not natural. Even from here, you can see the unnatural smoothness of its curves, the way it tries to be a geometric shape, but is constantly shifting, bulging, and retracting. This is the spawning stone. The history of this stone is one of the great ironies of the multiverse. Ages ago Primus, the creator god of the Modrons and the master of Mechanus, the plane of absolute law, looked upon the chaos of Limbo, the layer of the elemental chaos where Sladi dwell, and decided it needed to be fixed. He created a stone of absolute geometric perfection, a seed of law. He cast it into the chaos, believing that its lawfulness would radiate outward, crystallizing the chaos into order, calming the storm forever. Primus was wrong. NDT. The chaos was too strong. It did not submit to the stone. It attacked it. The energies of the plane corroded the stone, twisting its geometry, warping its purpose. But the friction, the cosmic heat generated by the clash of absolute law and absolute chaos, created a spark of life. From the slime on the surface of that corrupted stone, the first Sladi pulled themselves free. They are the children of a failed attempt at order, and they are horrific. Let us drift closer, masking our scent, hiding our presence behind a veil of wind. The surface of the spawning stone is a writhing carpet of color. Thousands, perhaps millions, of toad-like bipeds swarm over it. They are tall, like bipeds, hulking creatures with long claws and wide, toothy maws. Outdone, only, ishinitain, su, edgedun, opsi. They come in colors, and those colors dictate their terrifying life cycle. The red slad, look at them. They are the brutes. Their skin is a mottled crimson, their muscles twitching with restless energy. They are the foot soldiers of chaos. A red slad has a gland beneath the claws of its hands. This is not poison. It is reproductive biological matter. Intensity, connection, fun, in and out. If a red slad claws you, it implants an egg beneath your skin. It happens in an instant. The egg is tiny, a grain of chaotic sand. But it grows. Over a period of days, the victim falls ill. They feel a gnawing hunger. They feel a gnawing hunger, a bloating in the stomach. And then, inevitably, the egg hatches. But it does not hatch into a red slad. It hatches into a blue slad tadpole. The tadpole eats its way out of the host, killing them in a mess of gore, and eventually grows into a full-sized blue slad. Now, look for the blue sladi. They are larger than the reds, with hook-like spurs on the back of their hands. They are more thoughtful, more cruel. They do not implant eggs. They carry a disease known as chaos phage. If a blue slad strikes you, the phage enters your bloodstream. This is not a biological virus. It is a transformative curse. It rewrites your DNA. It liquefies your bones and reshapes your organs. If you are not cured by powerful magic, you do not die. You transform into a red slad. Do you see the cycle? Red creates blue. Blue creates red. It is a loop of chaos, ensuring that no single form dominates, that the race is always churning, always changing. But sometimes, the chaos throws a variable into the equation. Sometimes, if a red slad implants an egg in a creature capable of arcane magic, or perhaps just a being of exceptional willpower, the tadpole that bursts forth is not blue, it is green. The green slad. You can see a few of them on the spawning stone, standing taller than the others, directing the flow of the swarm. Green sladi are intelligent. They possess magical abilities. They can cast fireballs, fly, and turn invisible. They can change their shape to look like humanoids, like you or me. A green slard is a spy. It will infiltrate a city on the material plane, posing as a merchant or a wizard. It will study the society, not to conquer it, but to understand how to disrupt it, and eventually, it will transform. A green slard that lives long enough and isolates itself in the deep chaos will retreat into a cocoon for a year. When it emerges, it is a grey slard. The grey is a master of the sword and the spell, a dedicated executioner who seeks only to hunt. And if a grey slard consumes the corpse of a death slard, it becomes a death slard. Finally, these are the terrifying apex predators of the race. We dare not get too close to a death slard. They radiate an aura of fear that can stop a mortal heart. They are creatures of pure destruction. Often commanding lesser slardi in raids across the plains. But who rules them? Do they have kings? In a society based on chaos, rule is a loose term. But there are the Slard Lords. These are entities that have evolved beyond the biological cycle into something akin to demigods. The most infamous is Sigor, the Lord of Entropy. If we were to travel deeper into the mists surrounding the spawning stone, we might find his citadel. Igor does not look like a toad. He appears as a skeletal figure, charred black, shrouded in a cape made of shadows. He rides a colossal skeletal dragon, not a true dragon, but a construct of bones and chaotic magic. Yogol carries a scythe that can cut the cord of life. But his greatest weapon is his paranoia. Yogol knows that the Slardi have infinite potential. He knows that if they were allowed to evolve unchecked, they might produce beings stronger than him. So, he manipulated the spawning stone. He altered the race so that only the reds and blues are common. He choked the evolution of his own people to stay in power. He is the tyrant of chaos, an oxymoron made flesh. Then there is Zendam, the Lord of Insanity. Zendam is barely a physical being anymore. She or he, or it he. Gender is fluid here often appears as a massive, golden amoeba, a flowing blob of psychic sludge that engulfs and dissolves the minds of those who approach. Zendam is the guardian of the spawning stone. She does not lead armies. She simply drives things mad. To look upon Zendam is to have your perception of reality shattered like a mirror dropped on stone. Why do the Slardi stay here? Why do they guard the stone? Because the spawning stone is the only place in the multiverse where the Slardi can congregate in such numbers without drifting apart. The elemental chaos is vast and constantly moving. Without the stone to anchor them, the Slardi would be scattered to the winds. It is their temple, their nursery, and their parliament. The stone is also the source of their control gems. This is a crucial piece of lore for any wizard or warlock listening. Every Slard is born with a gem embedded in its brain. This gem contains the essence of the Slard's being. If a powerful wizard can subdue a Slard and surgically remove this gem without killing the creature, the wizard holds the Slard's leash. The Slard must obey the holder of the gem. It will hate the holder. It will plot to kill the holder every second of every day, but it must obey. Many of the guardians you see in the towers of evil wizards on the material plane are enslaved Slardi, bound by the gems in their masters' pockets. It is a dangerous game if the wizard sleeps too soundly. If the gem slips from their pocket, the slod will take its revenge. And slod revenge is never quick. The relationship between the sloddy and the other inhabitants of the chaos is one of violent friction. The Githzerai hunt them. The demons try to enslave them for the blood war. The elementals simply clash with them. But the sloddy are winning in a way. They are spreading. Every time a portal to the elemental chaos is opened, there is a chance a slod will slip through. They are the invasive species of the cosmos. Imagine the sensation of standing on the spawning stone. Gravity pulls you toward the center of the rock. The ground is slick with mucus. The air is filled with telepathic shouting. A million voices screaming nonsense, riddles, and threats. Colors flash in the sky above. Auroras of wild magic that rain down sparks of liquid fire. It is a headache made manifest. Enter, Garnin, Ni, Boltown, and say the song or enter. But there is a beauty here, too. A savage, uncontrolled beauty. The sloddy are free. They have no laws, no taxes, no gods telling them what is sin and what is virtue. They simply act. If they are hungry, they eat. If they are angry, they eat. If they are angry, they kill. There is a purity to their existence that some chaotic philosophies find appealing. There is a rumor, unverified but persistent, of the white slod and the black slod. The white slod is said to be a mutation born of the Chronos chaos, a being that exists out of time. It is as white as starlight and can step between seconds. The black slod is the void. It is the slod that has embraced the emptiness of the abyss, but rejected the demonhood. It is a creature of pure annihilation, larger than a house that eats light. These are the monsters that even Yigor fears. Again, as we pull away from the spawning stone, watch the currents, see how the chaos flows around it. The stone disrupts the natural flow of the elements. It creates eddies and whirlpools. Navigating away from here is difficult. The sloddy do not like visitors. Look there. A group of green sloddy has spotted us. They are casting fireball. Hold tight. We are going to ride a chaos current out of here. Nishin Kaisao. Whoosh. The explosion rocks us, but we are moving fast, carried by a sudden updraft of steam. The croaking fades. The wet, slapping sound diminishes. The smell of musk is replaced by the clean, sharp scent of ozone and burning metal. We have survived the biological hazard. We have seen the raw, unshaped life of the chaos. Now we must look at the other children of this plane. The sloddy are the children of the chaos interacting with law. But what of the children of the chaos interacting with the soul? What of the beings that are half flesh, half element? We are going to travel to the borderlands of the elemental nations. We are going to meet the Genasi. We are going to see the Archons, the soldiers of the Primordials, who still march to a drum beaten 10,000 years ago. The air is cooling. The light is stabilizing. We are entering the regions where the elements have been tamed, not by stone or by mind, but by blood. The air here is cleaner. The smell of musk and rot from the sloddy spawning grounds has faded, replaced by the crisp scent of ozone and the dry, dusty smell of heated stone. We have moved away from the biological anomaly of the spawning stone and returned to the elemental mainstream. But we are not alone. No. Look down at the floating island we are passing. It is a lush garden of crystal trees and flowing mercury streams. Standing by the edge of a cliff, looking out into the void is a figure. At first glance, they appear human. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, a face, but look closer. Their skin is the color of polished obsidian. Cracks run along their forearms, glowing with a dull, red internal light. When they exhale, a small puff of gray smoke escapes their lips. This is a genasi. And we have spoken of the gods, the primordials, and the monsters. Now we must speak of the people. The genasi are the bridge between the alien nature of the elemental chaos and the familiar mortality of the material plane. Their origins are a subject of much debate among the sages of Candlekeep and the Plana scholars of Sigil. The most common story is one of heritage. A mortal human and a genie, a jinn, Efreet, Tao, or Marid, form a union. The result is a child with the blood of the elements in their veins. But this is a simplification in the deep lore of the elemental chaos, specifically focusing on the metaphysical fallout of the spell plague and the merging of worlds. The origin of the genasi is far more complex. Consider the theory of the manifest soul. Imagine a mortal soul drifting through the cosmos before birth, waiting to be incarnated. In most cases, the soul passes through the astral sea and finds its body. But sometimes the soul takes a detour. Sometimes the soul brushes against the elemental chaos. It gets snagged on a spire of lightning. It dips into a pool of acid. It flies through a cloud of magical dust. The soul absorbs this energy. It is stained by it. When that soul finally finds a body on the material plane, the body changes to match the soul. The flesh becomes harder, or hotter, or lighter. The child is born not just as a human, but as a vessel for elemental energy. This is why genasi are so diverse. They are not just fire or water. There are fire soul genasi, whose hair moves like flickering flames, and whose skin is hot to the touch. They are passionate, quick to anger, and possess a burning ambition. There are water soul genasi, who smell of sea salt and whose skin feels like smooth, wet river stones. They are fluid, patient, and eroded by nothing. There are earth soul genasi, heavy and solid, with skin like rough sandstone or glittering crystal. They are the Stoics, the unmovable objects in a universe of unstoppable forces. There are storm soul genasi, perhaps the most volatile, with lines of lightning tracing their nervous systems, visible through purple skin. They are the unpredictable aristocrats of the chaos. In the elemental chaos, genasi are not outcasts as they often are on the material plane. Here, they are the guides. They are the traders. They are the only ones who can truly understand the language of the storm without being destroyed by it. They build communities on the stable earth motes. They mine the exotic ores, adamantine, mithril, and star metal, that can only be found here. They domesticate the elemental beasts. But they are not the soldiers of this realm. That title belongs to the elemental archons. Look further out, past the genasi trade post. Do you see those flashes of light moving in formation? That is a patrol. Now, a word of warning for those familiar with the celestial realms. Do not confuse these beings with the archons of Mount Celestia. Those are beings of law and good, shaped like hounds or lanterns. The entities we see here are elemental archons, sometimes called Myrmidons. In later texts, they share the name, but they serve a very different master. During the Dawn War, the Primordials faced a problem. They had infinite power, and they had the raw elementals. But raw elementals are wild. A fire elemental burns. It does not follow complex tactical orders. A water elemental floods. It does not hold a defensive line. Ish does not. The Primordials needed an army that combined the raw power of the elements with the discipline of the angels they were fighting. So, they forged the elemental archons. Archons are not born, they are made. They are shaped elementals. The Primordials took the chaos matter and hammered it into humanoid shapes. They imposed a rigid military hierarchy upon them. They gave them weapons and armor forged from the very stuff of their bodies. Ender 1. Ishaj permanent. An ice archon looks like a knight clad in armor made of non-melting permafrost. Their weapons are jagged shards of hail that freeze the blood of anyone they cut. They are cold, calculating, and ruthless tacticians. A fire archon appears as a humanoid inferno, encased in plates of blackened iron that float over their burning core. They wield scimitars of magma. They are the shock troops, the berserkers who burn through enemy lines. An earth archon is a walking tank, a creature of stone and metal that hunts via tremor sense. They are the defenders, the wall that walks. A water archon is a fluid assassin, armored in coral and hardened brine, capable of slipping through the smallest crack to drown a general in his sleep. The tragedy of the archons is that their war is over. Nay, but their programming remains. The Primordials are imprisoned or asleep, but the archons still march. They patrol the ruins of ancient citadels. They guard the boundaries of the elemental nodes. They fight phantom battles against enemies who have been dead for 10,000 years. They are the robots of the elemental chaos. They have intelligence, yes, but it is an intelligence focused entirely on war. They do not create art. They do not love, they serve. There is a tense relationship between the Genasi and the Archons. The Genasi view the Archons as dangerous relics, tools that have been left on while the workshop is closed. The Archons view the Genasi as confusing. The Genasi have the spark of the elements, but they have the free will of mortals. To an Archon, free will is a disorder. Occasionally, a powerful Genasi warlord or a wizard might capture the loyalty of an Archon squad. They do this by finding the ancient primordial command words, syllables of power spoken in the Dawn War that force the Archons to obey. A Genasi walking into a negotiation with the bodyguard of fire Archons is a statement of immense power. Let us observe the ecology around us. The Genasi and Archons are the bipeds, but the elemental chaos is teeming with other life. See that flash of red and gold streaking through the sky? That is a phoenix. In the material plane, a phoenix is a rare legendary creature. Here, they are part of the ecosystem. They nest in the calderas of floating volcanoes. They feed on fire snakes and salamanders. A phoenix in the elemental chaos is massive, with a wingspan that can shadow a city. When they die, they explode in a supernova of restoration, instantly reborn from their own ash. They are the symbol of the chaos's eternal nature, destruction and creation in a single loop. Below us, in a river of sludge and ice, you might see the cryonax. These are yeti-like horrors, masters of the cold, who worship the Prince of Evil Ice. They hunt the warm-blooded travelers, preserving them in blocks of ice as trophies. And floating like balloons are the gas spores and saw whales. The saw whale is a majestic beast, a whale composed of buoyant gases and cloud stuff, filtering the air from microscopic elemental plankton. They are peaceful, often used as beasts of burden by the genasi, who build gondolas on their backs to travel between Earth modes. As we drift through this section of the chaos, the feeling is one of civilization on the brink. The genasi cities are precarious. One bad storm, one shift in the primordial winds, and their homes could be torn apart, yet they stay. They thrive on the danger. A genasi feels most alive when the wind is trying to tear their skin off. Imagine a genasi market. It is a bazaar of the impossible. A merchant shouts, selling bottled lightning that can power a ship for a year. Another sells ever ice, ice that never melts, used to keep food fresh or to forge weapons. A smith hammers a breastplate made of thunder iron, metal that booms when it is struck, knocking attackers backward. You might see a group of adventurers here, seeking a guide. They are looking for a specific location, perhaps a lost temple or a portal back home. They are haggling with a Winsal genasi, who promises to guide them through the razor storm for a price. The price is rarely gold. Gold is too common here. You can find veins of gold in the floating rocks. The currency of the elemental chaos is stability, magic items that maintain order. Scrolls of protection, or, more darkly, favors. I will guide you, the genasi says, their voice sounding like a breeze through dry leaves. But when you return to the material plane, you must plant a seed of chaos for me. You must burn down a specific lore library, or you must divert a river. They play the long game. We must be careful not to be conscripted. The Archons are gathering in the distance. Do you see the smoke rising? A fire Archon phalanx is marching toward an Earth Archon fortress, an ancient grudge, reignited by a shift in the tectonic plates. We do not want to be caught in the crossfire of a battle that has been raging since the dawn of time. We need to move to a place that is more structured, yet equally dangerous. We are looking for the greatest civilization in the elemental chaos. We have seen the small genasi outposts. We have seen the Archon forts, but there is a metropolis here, a city of such wealth and cruelty that it is known across the entire multiverse. It is the city of brass. It is the city of brass. It is the home of the Ifrit. It is the center of trade, slavery, and fire. It is the jewel of the chaos, burning bright in the darkness. Prepare yourself for the heat. The genasi can tolerate it. The Archons are made of it, but for us, we will need to shield our minds and our bodies. The city of brass does not welcome tourists. It welcomes customers and victims. Let us see which one we will be. Ancients. The horizon is burning. Hail. As we leave the territories of the genasi and the marching grounds of the Archons, the chaotic, swirling nature of the landscape begins to flatten. The random bursts of magma and the floating islands of ice give way to a singular, overwhelming dominance of fire. But this is not the wildfire of the royal. This is tamed fire. This is fire beaten into submission and forced to serve as a foundation. Ahead of us, floating upon a sea of liquid flame that stretches to infinity, lies a plate of solid basalt and brass the size of a continent. And upon that plate sits the oldest, richest, and most terrifying metropolis in the multiverse. We have arrived at the city of brass. Nay, shield your eyes. The light here is not the soft, diffuse glow of the chaos. It is the harsh, glaring radiance of a sun that never sets. The city walls rise hundreds of feet into the air, forged from gleaming brass that shines like gold. They are polished to a mirror finish, designed to blind enemies and reflect the glory of the masters within. This is the capital of the Efreet. The Efreet are the genies of fire. They are the aristocrats of the elements. Unlike the chaotic fire elementals that simply burn, the Efreet rule. They are lawful evil in the truest sense. They believe that the strong must rule the weak, and that fire is the element of dominion. As we drift toward the massive obsidian gates, observe the architecture. It is a breathtaking display of minarets, onion domes, and soaring spires. Every inch of the city is designed to impress. The streets are paved with flagstones of cooling magma and basalt. The fountains do not spray water. They spray liquid fire, or sometimes streams of molten gold, that cool and are reheated in an endless cycle of opulence. The heat here is oppressive. It is a physical weight that presses against your chest. Without magical protection, a mortal would be ash in seconds. But even with protection, you feel it. It is a dry, desiccating heat that sucks the moisture from your breath. Why? And we pass through the gates. The guards are Efreet warriors, 12 feet tall, their skin the color of deep red cinder, their muscles rippling under armor of blackened chainmail. They hold scimitars wreathed in eternal flame. They look at us with a mixture of boredom and contempt. To an Efreet, any being not made of fire is merely fuel or a slave. We are now in the Grand Bazaar. This is the economic heart of the elemental chaos, while the rest of the plain is a storm of raw materials. The city of brass is where those materials are sold. Listen to the cacophony. It is the sound of commerce conducted at the volume of a riot. Thousands of voices, ignan, primordial, infernal, draconic, shout prices and haggles. The stalls here sell things that defy imagination. In China, and Chinchongxiu, and look to your left. A merchant is selling stars in a bottle. These are actual fragments of dying stars, harvested from the upper atmosphere of the chaos, used by wizards to power high-level evocation spells. To your right, a stall draped in silk, made of woven smoke, sells dragon's breath, vials of concentrated red dragon fire, green dragon chlorine, or blue dragon lightning. But the most common commodity here, and the one that turns the stomach of the virtuous, is life. The city of brass is the center of the multiversal slave trade. The Efreet are masters of slavery. They do not just enslave bodies, they enslave potential. You see cages made of force. Inside are Aesers, dwarven-like beings of fire with skin of bronze. They are master smiths enslaved by the Efreet to forge their weapons. You see salamanders, serpentine fire creatures, bound in cold iron collars. But you also see mortals, humans, elves, tieflings. adventurers who made a bad deal, planet travelers who took a wrong turn. They are sold not just for labor, but for their souls, their memories, or their beauty. The devils of the 9 hells are frequent guests here. Look for the horned figures in red robes, walking with purpose through the crowd. Devils and Ifrit share a lawful evil alignment. They get along famously. The city of brass is one of the few places where a devil can walk openly without being immediately attacked. They trade soul coins, currency made from the souls of the damned, in exchange for the elemental weapons forged by the Azas. It is a grim alliance of fire and tyranny. Dominating the skyline of the city is the Charcoal Palace. This is the seat of the Grand Sultan. His name is spoken in whispers, for to draw his attention is to invite doom. He is Marek al-Saidan, al-Harik ben Lazam, the Lord of the Flame, the potentate incandescent, the tempering and the eternal truth. The palace is a fortress of black stone that floats above the center of the city, tethered by massive chains of adamant. It is said that the Sultan sits on a throne of blue diamond, surrounded by a harem of 10 consorts and a legion of 10,000 elite janissaries. The Sultan claims dominion over the entire plane of fire, or the fire dominion of the chaos. He views Imix, the prince of evil fire whom we met earlier, as a savage terrorist. Imix represents wild, uncontrolled fire. The Sultan represents controlled, industrial fire. They are rivals, though the Sultan rarely lowers himself to acknowledge it. The laws in the city of brass are draconian. An eye for an eye is considered too lenient here. If you steal an apple, you lose your hand. If you strike an Ifrit, you are skinned alive and healed, then skinned again, for 101 days. If you default on a debt, you become the property of the creditor. There is a curfew. When the great gongs of the city sound, a noise like a hammer hitting a planet, the streets must clear. The night here is artificial, created by great screens of smoke that blot out the blazing sky. But the heat never fades. Despite the tyranny, adventurers come here. They come because the city of brass has everything. If you need a sword that can cut a ghost, you buy it here. If you need a map to a lost layer of the abyss, a cartographer in the brass library has it. But one must be wary of the pacts. Genies are creatures of binding magic. The Ifrit love to make deals. They will offer you a wish. But unlike the benevolent jinn of the air, an Ifrit's wish is a monkey's paw. It is a trap. It is a trap. I wish to be the strongest warrior in the world. You might say, oh, and the Ifrit will grant it. He will turn you into a statue of indestructible adamant. You are strong, yes, but you cannot move. You are a decoration for his garden. This twist of language is a sport to them. They call it the burn. As we walk through the district of cinders, notice the other residents. Not everyone is a slave or a master. There are the Firunutes, riding their giant striders, serving as messengers. There are the Mephits, annoying little imps of smoke and magma that serve as spies and couriers. Ishton, of Soatantisio and Gio. And there is the cult of the eternal flame. Io. These are mortals who worship fire. They have ritually burned away their fingerprints and eyelids to show their devotion. They serve the Ifrit willingly, hoping to be reincarnated as genies in the next life. They act as intermediaries for travelers, for a fee. The geography of the city is vast. It is not just one plate. It is a series of plates connected by bridges of brass. There is the furnace, the industrial district where the heat is so intense that even fire-resistant spells fail. Here, the Azers toil at the great anvil, forging the scimitars of speed and the armor of invulnerability that will be used in the blood war. There is the Plaza of Casting, a terrifying arena where spellcasters duel for the amusement of the Ifrit nobles. The loser is usually incinerated. There is the Worm of Fire, a massive ancient purple worm made of magma that circles the city and the sea below. It is a pet of the Sultan, fed the bodies of executed criminals. One of the most fascinating aspects of the City of Brass is its relationship with the Jinn. The Jinn are the genies of air. They are chaotic, free-spirited, and generally benevolent, or at least not malicious. The Ifrit hate them. They view the Jinn as flighty, unreliable, and weak. There is an ancient war between them, the War of Breath and Ash. It flares up occasionally. You might see a raid, Jinn riding on invisible stalkers or air elementals, diving out of the clouds to smash a tower in the City of Brass before vanishing. The Ifrit respond by sending flying ships, brass hulls, kept aloft by hot air balloons and bound elementals, to burn the cloud castles of the Jinn. But, for all their power, the Ifrit are paranoid. Look at the eyes of that merchant. Look at the way the guard grips his weapon. They are terrified of an uprising. There are millions of slaves in the City of Brass. They outnumber the Ifrit 50-1. If the slaves ever united, if the Azers and the Salamanders and the Mortals coordinated a strike, the city would fall. This is why the brutality is so performative. They must maintain the illusion of absolute invulnerability. There is a secret organization known as the Ring of Smoke. It is a resistance movement, a network of spies and saboteurs, escaped slaves, sympathetic Jinn, and rogue Genasi who operate in the shadows of the city. They smuggle people out. They sabotage the forges. They whisper rebellion in the barracks of the Azers. If you are ever trapped here, look for the symbol of a broken chain drawn in soot on a wall. That is the mark of the ring. But be careful. The Ifrit have spies everywhere. An invisible stalker might be listening to your heartbeat right now. We must leave before we draw attention. A mortal standing still for too long in the City of Brass is suspicious. You are either buying, selling, or you are loitering, and loiterers are arrested. As we head back toward the gates, take one last look at the magnificence, the shimmering domes, the rivers of gold, the sheer audacious scale of it. It is beautiful. It is undeniable. It is the pinnacle of what the elements can build when shackled by law. It is order imposed on the most destructive force in the universe. But it is a hollow beauty. It is built on the backs of the broken, the discordant note of the elemental chaos, that background hum of freedom and fury, is silenced here, replaced by the rhythmic marching of boots and the crack of the whip. We exit the obsidian gates. The heat does not lessen, but the oppressive psychic weight of the law lifts. We are back in the wild. We have seen the major players. The gods absent, the primordials imprisoned, the princes hateful, the Sladi chaotic, and the Ifrit tyrannical. Now, we must turn our attention to the land itself. We have floated through the soup and the royal, but there are specific locations in the elemental chaos that are anomalies, places where the magic of the Dawn War or the winds of the Primordials created geography that defies all logic. We are going on a tour of the impossible. We are going to visit the Ninth Bastion, the Keening Delve, and the river of multicolored mud. We are going to see how the land itself is a character in this story. Tighten your spiritual tether. The currents are about to get strange. The map you hold in your mind is useless here. Tear it up. Let the pieces drift away like confetti in a hurricane. In the material plane, you can trust a mountain to stay where it is. You can trust that the river flows to the sea. In the elemental chaos, geography is not a fact. It is a mood. We have visited the great cities. The fortresses of the Githzerai and the burning capital of the Ifrit. These are islands of stability imposed by will. But what of the wild places? What of the anomalies that exist simply because the laws of physics have taken a holiday? Come with me. We are going to tour the geography of the impossible. We are going to visit the landmarks that should not exist, yet do, purely out of spite for the probable. Our first stop lies in the distance. Look for the flash of white and silver against the roiling background of orange clouds. We are approaching the Ninth Bastion. If the city of brass is the fortress of tyranny, and Zertadlun is the fortress of self-control, the Ninth Bastion is the fortress of faith. It is a colossal castle, white as bone, perched precariously on a tumbling earth moat. It is inhabited not by elementals, but by the knights of the divine. These are the crusaders of the astral sea who have descended into the pit to hold the line. The lore of the bastion is tragic. Originally. No, there were more. The first bastion fell. The second was swallowed by a magma sea. The third was eroded by acid rain. And so on. 8 fortresses have fallen to the chaos. The 9th is the last one standing. It is a grim place. The knights here worship gods like Bahamut, Torm, and Erroneous. They believe that by maintaining this fortress, they are preventing the chaos from encroaching on the astral domains. They are the guards at the gate, fighting a war that most of the multiverse has forgotten. As we float past, you can see the walls are scarred. They are constantly repaired with whatever stone can be scavenged from the surrounding storm. It is a patchwork of divine marble and chaotic basalt. The knights do not sleep much. They spend their days fighting. Off demon raids from the abyss and elemental attacks from the Primordials. They are the ultimate underdogs, fueled only by the belief that their vigil matters. Now, let us turn away from the light of the bastion and head towards the sound. Can you hear it? A high-pitched, screaming whistle. It sounds like a flute played by a giant with punctured lungs. We are entering the Keening Delve. This is a massive anomaly of the air. It is a tunnel system, but not through rock. It is a tunnel through the wind itself. Imagine a tornado turned on its side and frozen in place, forming a labyrinth of solid air currents. The Keening Delve is the domain of the wildest air elementals and the hunting ground of invisible stalkers. The wind here moves so fast that it acts like a solid wall. if you were to touch the wall of the tunnel. The friction would strip the flesh from your hand in a microsecond. Ew. The sound, the keening, is caused by the air rushing over jagged floating rocks trapped inside the vortex. It is a sonic weapon. Travelers who enter the delve without plugging their ears with wax or magic often go mad, their equilibrium shattered by the relentless frequency. Deep inside the delve, it is said, lies the heart of the gale, a gem of pure crystallized breath that can control the weather of an entire world. Many have sought it. Most have simply added their own screams to the choir of the wind. We move on. The air grows hot again, but also thick, viscous. Below us flows the river of magma, but that is too simple a name. The locals call it the vein of the dragon. This is not just lava. It is alive. It snakes through the empty space between earth motes like a river of blood. Through a body, it defies gravity, looping and twisting in complex knots. The water of this river is molten gold, mixed with liquid fire. It is incredibly valuable and incredibly deadly. Fire giants sail this river in barges made of black iron. They dredge the bottom with nets of adamantine, looking for fire diamonds, gems that only form under the immense pressure of the river's current. If you look closely at the surface of the river, you might see shapes, fire snakes, magmins, but sometimes you see faces. The river has a rudimentary intelligence. It likes to splash, and when a river of lava splashes, it destroys airships. Let us find something solid. We need to rest our eyes from the glare. There, drifting in the twilight, do you see the crystalline forest of Shardha? This is an earth mote composed entirely of quartz and amethyst. But the trees are not wood. They are massive, growing crystals, towering hundreds of feet into the air. They hum, with psionic potential. This place is a favorite meditation spot for the wandering monks of the chaos. The crystals resonate with thought. If you think clearly here, the crystals glow blue. If you are angry, they glow red. If you are fearful, they turn black. It is a landscape that acts as a mood ring for your soul. However, it is also home to the shard mines. These are beings of living crystal, fragments of the living gate, a piece of deep lore concerning the barrier to the far realm. They are logical, cold, and fiercely protective of their crystal groves. They view organic life as soft and messy. To walk in Shard Hearth is to walk in a place where biology is the anomaly. We must also speak of the Pandemonium Stone. This is not a fixed location. It moves. It is a massive, erratic spire of rock that teleports randomly through the elemental chaos. It is a nexus of wild magic. On the material plane, magic has rules. Here, near the Pandemonium Stone, magic has a sense of humor. Cast a fireball, and it might heal your enemy. Cast invisibility, and you might turn bright, neon pink, and start singing loudly. Sorcerers, wild magus specifically, seek out the stone. They believe that if they can touch it, they will gain mastery over the random tides of magic. Most of them end up turned into potted plants or exploded into confetti. The stone is a reminder that the chaos does not just apply to matter. It applies to the weave of magic itself. But perhaps the most disturbing geography is the flesh modes. We try to avoid these occasionally. The chaos churns up matter that mimics biology. You will find an island that is not made of rock, but of meat. It is warm. It pulses. Trees of bone grow from it, with leaves of hair. Rivers of bile flow through canyons of muscle. These are not dead gods. They are just random conglomerations of organic elements. They are the nightmares of the primordials made manifest. The Sladi love these places. They use them as nests. To land on a flesh mote is to walk on a living thing that does not have a brain. Only a metabolism. It tries to digest you. The ground produces acid. The grass tries to wrap around your ankles. It is the body horror of the chaos. Finally, we must visit the Motel of the Stars. This is a whimsical name given by planet travelers to a collection of derelict spelljammer ships. Over the millennia, many ships from the material plane or the astral sea have crashed here. They get caught in the gravity wells of earth motes or burnt by firestorms, but sometimes they just get stuck in a pocket of vacuum, where nothing moves. This graveyard of ships has been lashed together by survivors. It is a floating shantytown of hull plates, rigging, and magical debris. It is a place of lawless neutrality. Here, a Githyanki pirate might drink with a Genasi trader and a tiefling warlock. They are all castaways. They survive by scavenging the other wrecks. The motel is a testament to the tenacity of mortals. In a universe of gods and monsters, sometimes the most impressive landmark is just a bunch of broken wood tied together by people who refuse to die. As we leave the geography of the impossible, remember this rule: in the elemental chaos, belief shapes nature. If enough people believe a bridge exists, the chaos might manifest a bridge. If you are terrified that the tunnel will collapse, the chaos will sense your fear and collapse the tunnel. Travel here is a battle of confidence. The Githzerai know this. The Sladi ignore it. The Archons fight it. But there was a time when the geography was even more broken. A time when the separation between the world and the chaos was shattered completely. We must move to our history lesson. We must understand the event that rewrote the map of the multiverse and left scars that are still healing today. We are going to talk about the spell plague. We are going to talk about the time when the blue fire burned the rules of magic, and the elemental chaos briefly merged with the world of Toril. Prepare yourself. The magic is about to get unstable. The air here does not just smell of ozone. It tastes of copper. It tastes of old blood and raw electricity. We have traveled through the geography of space, the bastions, the delves, the cities now. We must travel through the geography of time. We must address the scar that runs across the history of the realms, the event that briefly tore down the walls between the world and the chaos and allowed them to bleed into one another. We must speak of the spell plague. To understand the elemental chaos as it exists today, you must understand the year of blue fire, 1385 Doctor. Before this moment, the separation between the material plane, Toril, and the elemental chaos was rigid. The gods held the door shut. The primordials were locked in the basement. The weave, the magical fabric controlled by the goddess Mistra, that regulated all interaction between these forces. It was the filter, It ensured that when a wizard cast a fireball, they got a specific amount of fire, not a thermonuclear detonation. But filters can break. The story is one of hubris and malice. The dark god Sirik, the prince of lies, conspired with Shah, the goddess of shadow. In a moment of cosmic violence that shook the foundations of the astral sea, Sirik murdered Maestra. Imagine the weave not as a blanket, but as a lattice of tension, cables holding a suspension bridge together. When Maestra died, the cables snapped, all of them at once. The result was not just a loss of magic, it was a corruption of magic. The raw, unfiltered energy of the cosmos, the stuff of the far realm, the astral sea, and most importantly, the elemental chaos, surged into the material plane. Without regulation, no dingtal, sikai. This energy manifested as blue fire. Visualize it, not the orange flame of combustion, but a cobalt blue plasma that flowed like liquid. It did not burn in the traditional sense, it reshaped. If the blue fire touched a mountain, the mountain might turn into glass, or it might detach from the earth and float into the sky. If it touched a person, they might dissolve, or they might gain transparent skin and eyes of fire. This event caused the elemental convergence. For a century, the cosmology of the universe was rewritten. The hidden twin of Toril, the world of Abyll, which had been lost in a pocket dimension dominated by primordials and dragons, crashed back into Toril. It was a planetary collision of geography. This is why, when you travel parts of Faerun today, you see landscapes that look like they belong in the elemental chaos, because they do. Consider the nation of Akanul. Endo, Mana, Shawantiadis. Before the spell plague, this was part of the Shah. But when the worlds collided, a chunk of Abir, a realm called Shai, was transposed onto the landscape. The people who lived there were Genasi, but these were not the scattered. Lone wanderer Genasi. We met in section 8. These were Genasi, who had built a civilization under the thumb of primordial titans. They brought the physics of the elemental chaos with them. In Akanul, gravity is a suggestion. There are spires of rock that twist into the sky like corkscrews. There are earth motes, floating islands of land that drift over the cities. This is the legacy of the chaos bleeding through. The spell plague proved that the barrier the gods built in the Dawn War is not invincible. The most dramatic physical scar of this event is the underchasm. In the blink of an eye, a massive swath of the Faerunian continent simply collapsed. The earth gave way to a pit so deep it nearly reached the Underdark. This was not just a sinkhole. It was the elemental chaos reaching up and taking a bite out of the world. For years, the underchasm was a festering wound where the boundary between the material plane and the elemental realms was paper thin. Strange beasts crawled out of it. Clouds of sentient gas drifted up from the depths. Although the second sundering has since healed much of the world and separated Abir and Toril once more, the remnants remain. The earth motes of Halrua are another example. The wizard nation of Halrua was famous for its ski ships. When the spell plague hit, their magic failed cataclysmically, but the land itself was infused with the chaotic energy of the blue fire. Now, chunks of the landscape float permanently. This is not a natural phenomenon of Toril. It is the physics of the elemental chaos, grafted onto the material plane like a skin graft. But the spell plague did something even more terrifying to the elements themselves. It created the plague change. In the elemental chaos, we are used to pure elements. Fire is fire, water is water. But the spell plague mixed them with the stuff of the far realm and the rotting energy of the abyss. A plague-changed fire elemental is a horror. It burns with blue fire. It does not just inflict heat damage. It inflicts a random magical wasting disease. It might teleport every time it is struck. It might scream with a human voice. The most dangerous manifestation of this was the Void Harrow. We spoke of the abyss earlier, and the shard of evil. The Void Harrow is a similar concept, a crystalline vessel of concentrated madness that was carried on the tides of the spell plague. It infected the elements. It created the abyssal plague. It infected the abyssal plague. This plague turned the elemental nature of the victim against them. A creature infected by the Void Harrow would find their flesh turning into stone, or their blood turning into acid. It was the elemental chaos trying to rewrite the biology of the victim into raw matter, but doing it wrong. For the traveler, in the elemental chaos today, the scars of the spell plague are still visible. You might encounter a plagueland pocket within the chaos itself. No. Usually, the elemental chaos is clean chaos. But in a plagueland pocket, the chaos is sick. The colors are wrong, sickly magentas and bruised purples. The gravity induces nausea. The magic here is wild. The magic here is wild. If you cast a spell in a plagueland pocket, you must roll on the wild magic table. You might summon a flower pot instead of a lightning bolt. You might turn yourself into a sheep. The locals, the Githzerai, and the Genasi avoid these pockets religiously. They mark them with floating buoys of black iron. Gicholishana de Seagull. And town. Do not enter, the boys warn. Here lies the blue fire. The spell plague also shifted the political balance of the plane. During the century of the plague, the gods were weak. The weave was tattered. The primordials stirred in their sleep. Many cults of the elder elemental eye believe that the spell plague was a test run. They believe it proved that the gods' hold on reality is fragile. It emboldened the princes of elemental evil. Imix and Ogrimmok expanded their domains during this time, sensing that the cosmic jailers were distracted. It is why the elemental nodes are so fortified today. They built up their strength while the gods were putting out the fires on Toril. But there is a strange, almost beautiful side to this catastrophe: spell scars. Some mortals who survived contact with the blue fire were not destroyed. They were changed. They gained a spell scar. A spell scar is a physical mark, a glowing blue tattoo, a patch of crystalline skin, or eyes that weep phantom flame. In the elemental chaos, a spell-scarred individual is treated with a mix of awe and fear. Why? Because a spell scar allows you to manipulate the raw stuff of the chaos instinctively. A wizard needs formulas and components to shape the elements. A spell-scarred individual can sometimes just reach out and grab a handful of fire. They are living conduits to the time when the rules were broken. The Githzerai sometimes study them, trying to understand if this power can be disciplined. The Sladi try to eat them, attracted to the scent of the wild magic. As we drift through this region of the chaos, a region known as the scarred sky, where ribbons of blue fire still dance in the upper atmosphere, reflect on the fragility of it all. We assume the ground is solid. We assume fire burns. We assume magic works. The spell plague showed us that these are just agreements, and agreements can be broken. The elemental chaos is waiting. It is patient. It knows that the walls are thin. It knows that one day another god might die, another weave might snap, and the sea of possibilities will come crashing down again. But we cannot dwell on the history of disasters forever. We must focus on the present. We are travelers here, flesh and blood in a world of rock and energy. We need to know how to stay alive. We have looked at the geography, the history, and the inhabitants. Now, we must look at the practicalities. How do you breathe in a vacuum? How do you drink from a river of dust? How do you sail a ship where there is no nor? We are moving to the survival guide. We are going to discuss the hazards, the phenomena, and the mechanics of existing in the roiling infinite without dying instantly. Check your gear, tighten your boots, and for the love of the gods, do not touch the blue fire. We have spent hours drifting through the history, the politics and the geography of this realm. We have looked at the macrocosm, but now we must look at the microcosm. We must look at you. You are a creature of biology. You are a sack of water, carbon, and calcium held together by a fragile skin and a rhythmic heartbeat. You evolved to survive on a world where the ground stays under your feet, where the air is 21% oxygen, and where the temperature rarely exceeds the boiling point of water. Here, in the elemental chaos, you are an anomaly. You are a soft thing in a world of hard edges. You are a flammable thing in a world of fire. If you were to step through a portal right now without preparation, without magic, and without knowledge, you would likely be dead within 6 seconds. So, come closer. Let us check your inventory. Let us go over the rules of survival. This is not lore for the sake of history. This is lore for the sake of staying alive. The problem of gravity. The first thing that will kill you is your own assumption about down. Niche. On the material plane, gravity is a law. It is a constant force generated by the mass of the planet. Here, gravity is a suggestion. It is known as subjective directional gravity. In the vast open soup of the chaos, there is no gravity. You simply float. If you push off a rock, you will drift forever until you hit something else, or until air resistance slows you down. This causes severe nausea in novices, a condition known as the void heaves. Your inner ear, desperate for an orientation, spins wildly. But on the large objects, the earth motes, the city of brass, the bastions, gravity exists, however. It is often oriented toward the center of the object or perpendicular to its surface. Here is the danger. Jumping. If you are standing on a floating cube of earth and you run and jump off the edge to reach a nearby platform, you leave the gravity of the first cube. You enter the null gravity zone. But if you drift too close to a different face of the second cube, its gravity might snag you. Suddenly, down is sideways. You don't land on your feet. You slam into the wall of the cliff, face first, falling horizontally with the force of a terminal velocity impact. Experienced travelers learn to orient themselves. Githzerai monks can do this with a thought, deciding which way is down. For you, I recommend a gravity anchor. This is a magical item. usually a heavy pair of boots or a belt. That allows you to designate a local surface as down. Without it, you are a leaf in the wind. The problem of breath. Take a deep breath. In the material plane, air is air. Here, air is a cocktail. The elemental chaos has an atmosphere. Yes, it is breathable, mostly. But it is not mixed evenly. You might walk through a pocket of pure air, too pure. It is hyper-oxygenated. It makes you giddy. It makes your heart race. A single spark in a pocket of pure air can cause an explosion that incinerates your lungs. A mile later, you might hit a pocket of old air or earth air. This is heavy with dust and spores. It clogs the alveoli. It tastes like sucking on a penny. And then there are the vacuum pockets. These are invisible bubbles of absolute nothingness. You walk into one, and suddenly, the air is ripped from your lungs. The fluids in your eyes and mouth begin to boil due to the pressure drop. Travelers often wear amulets of adaptation or cast air bubble rituals. Constantly, the seasoned spelljammers carry air motes, small stones from the plane of air that constantly leak fresh oxygen, around their necks like perfume bottles. The problem of direction. Throw away your compass. A magnetic needle here will just spin until it snaps. There is no north. There is no magnetic pole. So, how do you navigate a place that shifts every time you blink? You use beacon. The elemental chaos is dotted with magical lighthouses, maintained by the Genasi or the Githzerai. These emit a psychic frequency rather than a beam of light. You navigate by tuning your mind to a specific beacon. I am heading toward the resonance of Zerthadlan. You focus, and your mind pulls you in that direction. But if you lose focus, if you get distracted by a battle or a storm, you drift. This is called the drift. It is the most common cause of death for explorers. They simply lose their way and float into the infinite royal until they starve or are eaten by a shark made of magma. So, it is states. Advanced navigators use threshold compasses. These are not magnetic. They are attuned to specific elemental signatures. A compass might point to the nearest mass of liquid water or the nearest portal to the abyss. The environmental hazards now. Let us look at the weather. In the elemental chaos, bad weather does not mean rain. It means the apocalypse. 1. Chaos storms. This is the most iconic phenomenon. A chaos storm is a hurricane where the rain is not water. It might rain acid. It might rain blood. It might rain blue fire. But the true danger is the transmutational rain. In a severe chaos storm, the precipitation carries raw transformative magic. If a drop of this rain touches your steel armor, the steel might turn into glass. If it touches your skin might turn into bark. I have read logs of ships caught in these storms. They speak of the sails turning into bat wings, the wooden hull turning into solid ice, and the crew turning into statues of salt. 2. Elemental bleed. This occurs when two incompatible elements are forced into the same space. Imagine a cloud of steam. Harmless, right? But in the chaos, this might be a bleed of fire and water that hasn't stabilized. You walk into the fog. You walk into the fog. And you are simultaneously boiled and drowned, or raise a wind. This is air mixed with earth. The wind carries millions of microscopic shards of diamond dust. It acts like sandpaper. Being caught in a razor wind without protection will strip a humanoid to the bone in minutes. 3. Psychic wind. Because the elemental chaos is responsive to will, as we saw with the Githzerai. Strong emotions can create weather. If a great battle is fought, the rage of the dying soldiers can manifest as a psychic wind. This wind does not blow your hair. It blows your mind. It carries memories that are not yours. It whispers despair. Travelers caught in a psychic wind often forget who they are, or they become convinced they are actually someone else, perhaps a soldier who died 1,000 years ago. Survival strategies. So, you are here. The gravity is weird, the air is explosive, and the wind hates you. How do you survive? Rule 1. Never sleep exposed. You cannot just pitch a tent on an Earth mode. The environment is too hostile. You need a Leomund's tiny hut or a modern Canaan's magnificent mansion. You need a pocket dimension within the dimension. If you sleep in the open, you might wake up to find the ground has dissolved into lava, or that a Slod has implanted an egg in you while you dreamed. Rule 2. Transmute your food. Normal rations spoil instantly here. The chaos accelerates entropy. Bread goes moldy in minutes. Meat rots in seconds. You need magic. Create food and water is essential. Or you carry ever rations. Food preserved in stasis fields. Never eat the local flora or fauna unless you have a Genasi guide. A fireberry might look delicious, but it might also set your stomach on fire from the inside. Rule 3. The tether. When exploring the open space between islands, adventurous parties use an astral tether or a physical chain made of adamantine. You tie yourselves together. If the gravity shifts and the rogue falls up, the barbarian can pull them back down. Never separate. Separation is death. Travel mechanics. Spell yamming and portals. How do we move long distances? Walking is impossible. Flying is exhausting. We use spelljammers. While spelljammers are most famous for sailing the astral sea wild space, they are also the primary vehicles of the elemental chaos. However, they are modified. A chaos jammer looks different. It doesn't have the wide solar sail wings of an astral ship. It is sleeker, shaped like a submarine or a bullet. It needs to be aerodynamic, or hydrodynamic, or lithodynamic to punch through the various states of matter. The hull is often reinforced with glass steel or enchanted iron to resist acid and fire. The helm, the chair that controls the ship, requires a pilot of immense will. In the astral sea, you steer with thought. In the elemental chaos, you steer with force. You have to fight the current. A pilot in the chaos finishes their shift exhausted, sweating, often bleeding from the nose, due to the psychic strain of forcing the ship to go straight in a world of curves. Portal travel. This is the faster. It is the faster, deadlier option. The elemental chaos is full of color pools and vortices. A vortex is a natural connection to the material plane. A volcano on Toril creates a magma vortex here. A hurricane creates an air vortex. You can jump through these, but they are one-way streets usually, and they are hot. Jumping into a magma vortex to get home means you are jumping into a volcano. You need immunity to fire, or you arrive home as a corpse. There are also whirlpools. These are random portals that suck matter from the chaos and spit it out. Somewhere. Maybe the abyss. Maybe the far realm. Maybe inside a mountain. Only use a whirlpool if you are being chased by something worse than death. 1. The psychic toll. The discordant note. Finally, we must speak of the mental survival. We mentioned the discordant note in the beginning. It is the background radiation of the plane. It is the sound of entropy. Prolonged exposure to the elemental chaos changes a mortal. First, you become irritable. The constant shifting of the light and the noise grates on the nerves. Then, you become impulsive. The chaotic nature of the plane seeps into your personality. You stop planning. You start acting on whim. Why not jump off this cliff? Why not eat that glowing rock? Eventually, you develop elemental madness. You become obsessed with a specific element. You might refuse to drink water because water is the enemy. You might stare into a fire for hours, convinced it is speaking to you. This is why the Githzerai are so rigid. They have to be. To relax is to let the madness in. For an adventurer, this means you need to keep your visits short. Get in, find the artifact, kill the monster, get out. Do not linger, do not build a summer home here. Do not build a summer home here. If you stay too long, you risk elemental infusion. Your eyes start to glow, your skin hardens, you are becoming a genasi, or something less defined. You are becoming part of the background scenery. The safe zones are there, any truly safe places. Only a few, the sanctuary of the earth, deep inside the largest earth motes. The sheer mass of the rock blocks out the chaotic radiation. Dwarven mining expeditions often build bases deep underground here for this reason. The eye of the storm, paradoxically, the center of the largest chaos storms, is often dead, silent, and stable. But getting there requires sailing through hell. Divine enclaves, places like the Ninth Bastion. The presence of divine magic acts as a Faraday cage against the chaos. As we prepare to leave this survival guide behind, check your gear one last time. Is your gravity anchor buckled? Is your air moat glowing? Is your mind shielded? Good, because we are reaching the end of our journey. We have survived the history, the monsters, and the elements themselves. We have one final section to cover. We must synthesize all we have learned. We must understand the meaning of this place. Why is it necessary? Why must the chaos exist for the world to turn? We are heading to the exit. We are heading to the point where the elemental chaos touches the roots of the world tree. We are going to look back at the storm one last time and understand the terrible, beautiful necessity of the eternal churn. We are drifting now. The roar of the city of brass has faded to a whisper. The psychic humming of the Githzerai monasteries is a memory. The croaking of the Sladi and the screaming of the wind have been left behind. We are moving toward the edge, not the edge of the abyss. We have seen enough of that darkness, but the upper edge, the membrane, the thin, shimmering veil that separates the roiling infinite from the solid reality of the material plane. Turn around. Look back one last time at the expanse we have traversed. From this vantage point, it does not look like a war zone. It does not look like a prison. It looks like a painting that is painting itself. You see the ribbons of liquid fire braiding together with rivers of diamond dust. You see the great storms of lightning that act as the nervous system of the universe. You see the floating islands, the spinning motes, the flashes of blue and green. and red. It is magnificent. Enchan, Chui. We have spent a long time discussing the dangers. We have spoken of the primordials who wish to smash the world, the demons who wish to corrupt it, and the hazards that wish to dissolve it. It is easy to look at the elemental chaos and see it as the enemy. It is easy to view it as the thing that must be walled off, beaten back, and tamed. That is a partial truth, and partial truths are the most dangerous kind. The elemental chaos is not the enemy of life. It is the source of life. Consider your own body. The heat in your blood, that is the fire. The breath in your lungs, that is the air. The calcium in your bones, that is the earth. The fluids that sustain you, that is the water. You are a walking, breathing microcosm of this plane. You are a tiny pocket of the elemental chaos, stabilized by the will of the gods and the structure of the astral sea. If the gods are the architects, the primordials are the quarry. You cannot build a cathedral without stone. You cannot forge a sword without fire. The astral sea provides the blueprint, the soul, and the moral compass, but the elemental chaos provides the brick, the mortar, and the fuel. This is the great paradox of the cosmology. The gods and the primordials hate each other. They fought a war that nearly shattered reality, and yet they are utterly dependent on one another. Without the astral sea, the elemental chaos is just sound and fury, a shapeless storm with no meaning. It is a story with no plot. Without the elemental chaos, the astral sea is just a ghost. It is a thought with no thinker. It is a dream with no dreamer. The material plane, the world of Toril, Orth, Kryn, Eberron, is the child of this difficult marriage. It is the just right. It is the balance point where fire warms but does not incinerate, where water hydrates but does not drown, where earth supports but does not crush, where air allows flight but does not crush, not scatter. No. As we float here, at the roots of existence, think about the primordials sleeping in the deep, Megera, Piranoth, even the bound lords like Miska. They are not evil in the way a devil is evil. A devil chooses cruelty, a primordial simply is entropy. They are the cosmic reset button. Civilizations rise, they become rigid, they become stagnant. They build walls that are too high and laws that are too strict. They stop growing, and then the earth shakes, the volcano erupts, the hurricane strikes, the elemental chaos reaches up and reminds the mortals that permanence is an illusion. It knocks down the towers so that something new can be built. It burns the forest so that the it burns the forest so that the seeds in the ash can sprout. It is terrifying, yes, but it is also necessary. A universe without chaos is a universe trapped in amber. It is dead. The eternal churn ensures that the story never ends, that the molecules are always moving, that the potential for something new is always present. We must also reflect on the inhabitants we met. Think of the Githzerai. They teach us that the only way to survive chaos is to find order within oneself. You cannot control the storm, but you can control how you stand in it. They are the Stoics, the masters of the internal world. Think of the Sladi. They teach us the opposite. They surrender to the chaos. They let it flow through them. They are the ultimate adapters. the creatures of pure instinct. They are the masters of the external moment. Think of the Genasi. They are the synthesis. They are the bridge. They prove that one can be of the storm and of the world simultaneously. And think of the Archons and the Ifrit. They teach us the dangers of trying to force the chaos into a box. The Ifrit try to enslave the fire, and they have built a paradise. But it is a paradise of tyranny. They have lost their souls to gain the world. The elemental chaos is a mirror. When you look into the storm, you do not see the elements. You see what you fear. You see what you desire. If you fear change, the chaos looks like a monster. If you desire freedom, the chaos looks like a playground. If you seek power, the chaos looks like a battery. We have traveled to the bottom of the abyss and back. We have seen the corruption of the shard of evil, the wound that will not heal. That is the warning. That is what happens when the balance breaks, when chaos ceases to be change and becomes destruction. The abyss is the elemental chaos, without the spark of creation. It is the cautionary tale of the multiverse. Nicht mehr adgerzipion. But here, in the upper strata, the chaos is healthy. Look there. Do you see it? A massive root, thick as a city, descending from the darkness above. It pulses with green light. It dips into a river of glowing water. This is a root of Yggdrasil, the world tree, or perhaps a metaphorical root of the material plane's foundation. It is drinking. It is drawing up the raw magic, the raw matter, filtering it, refining it, and sending it up to the world above. That water will become the rain that falls on your fields. That fire will become the hearth that warms your home. The elemental chaos feeds us every day. So, when you return to your world, when you feel the solid ground beneath your feet, do not take it for granted. Remember that the ground is just earth that has agreed to hold still for a moment. Remember that the wind is just air that has agreed not to scream. Respect the elements. They are the elders. They were here before the gods. They were here before the names of things were spoken, and they will be here long after the names are forgotten. The dawn war is called history, but in the timeless churn of this place, it is merely the morning. The afternoon has not yet come. The primordials are patient. They know that stone erodes. They know that magic fades. They are waiting for their turn to play with the clay again. But until then, we have the world. We have the beautiful, fragile, stabilized bubble of life. And it is precious precisely because it is so unlikely. We must go now. The portal is opening. A swirl of blue and silver light, a vortex that leads back to the quiet, back to the static, back to home. Step through with me. Let the heat fade. Let the noise die down. Let the gravity take hold of your bones again. Nay. Welcome back. Take a moment to adjust. The silence of the material plane can be deafening after such a journey. Wiggle your toes. Feel the floor. It is solid. It is safe. You have survived the deep dive. You have looked into the furnace of creation and returned unburned. I hope this journey has given you a new perspective on the storms you see in your own world. I hope that the next time you see a bonfire, you see the eyes of Imix. The next time you see a mountain, you feel the weight of Ogama. And the next time you feel a breeze, you hear the whisper of Yansi Bin. The lore of Dungeons and Dragons is vast, a tapestry woven from 1,000 threads. Today, we pulled on the thread of matter. In the future, we may pull on the thread of spirit, or shadow, or light. There are other planes to visit: the clockwork perfection of Mechanus, the beastlands of the wilds, the shadowed sorrow of the Shadowfell. The multiverse is infinite, and we have only just scratched the surface. If you enjoyed this drift through the chaos, if you found comfort in the storm, please consider aiding this channel. Like this video to help guide other travelers to our campfire. The algorithm is its own form of chaos, and your interaction creates a path of order for others to follow. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. This ensures that when the portal opens for our next journey, you will be the first to step through. And tell me in the comments below, if you were a Genasi, born of the chaos, which element would you claim? Would you be the burning passion of fire, the unyielding resolve of earth, the fluid adaptability of water, or the free spirit of air? I read your words, and they help shape the destination of our next adventure. Until then, keep your gravity anchor secure, keep your mind sharp, and remember, chaos is not the end. It is the beginning. Rest well, traveler,